All right, welcome everyone. Let's see. All right, bienvenidos and welcome to the governing board meeting of the Mount Diablo Unified School District, September 8th, 2021. We call this meeting to order at 6:05. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and roll call. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. All right, thank you very much. So we'll go to roll call. Vice President Mason? Here. Is your microphone working? Is that okay? Mic check, okay.
Here.
Very good, thank you. Just want to make sure it was working. Okay, Trustee Mayo?
Here.
Trustee McFerrin?
Here.
Trustee Nzewi?
Here.
And I'm also present. Our student board member, Kalina Fowler, is not able to attend this evening. All right. So next we have 6.2, review and potential approval of the agenda. Does anyone have anything to reorder or? Oh. To the end? Okay, we have a suggestion to move the board member reports to the end of the meeting. Are there board members okay with that?
I would make a motion that we approve the agenda with the change of the board member reports being at the end.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a motion by Vice President Mason, second by Trustee Mayo to approve the agenda with the change of the board reports being moved to the end. All right, we'll take that to a vote. Trustee Mayo?
Yes.
Trustee Mason?
Yes.
Trustee McFerrin?
Yes.
Trustee Nzewi?
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. All right. So we'll move on with our agenda. So report out of closed session 7.1 negotiations. The board may discuss negotiations or provide direction to its representatives regarding represented employees pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. We received information and provided direction. Item 7.2, discipline, dismissal, release, or reassignment of public employee, Government Code Section 54957B1. We received information. And item 7.3, public employee performance evaluation, superintendent pursuant to Government Code 54957. We also received information. And that brings us to public comment, item 8.1. The public may address the board regarding any item within the jurisdiction of the Board of Education of the Mount Diablo Unified School District that is not on the agenda. These presentations are limited to 3 minutes each, or a total of 30 minutes for all speakers, or the 3-minute limit may be shortened. If there are multiple speakers on any one subject, the public comment period may be moved to the end of the meeting. Speakers are not allowed to yield their time. So for anyone who might be new to this process, we on the board are not allowed to engage in discussion with a public comment because the rest of the public was not notified of that topic ahead of time as an agenda item. So please understand we do carefully listen to your comment, but will generally not respond other than to ask a clarifying question. Staff may follow up and the topic may be added to a future board agenda if needed. So how many public comments do we have? All right. Is this during? Not 9.1? Oh, no, we want 8. Are those all 9? Okay. All right, so we have one public comment under 8.1, Rosie Reed. Yeah, because we're on 8.0.
Good evening, Dr. Clark and members of the board. My name is Rosie Reed and I'm a teacher at Ignacio Valley High School. Thank you for working with our union to bring us back to school full-time in person this fall. This last month has recharged my soul and my love of the profession. I'm also a parent of students at Holbrook Language Academy, Sun Terrace Elementary, and Robert Shearer Preschool. I'm here today as both a teacher and a parent to ask the school board to mandate vaccines for all eligible students in MDUSD schools. At the high school level where I work, it would be entirely possible to have fully vaccinated spaces on many MDUSD campuses. We have it within our power to make our schools safer for our students, their families, and the educators who serve them. As a parent, I'm also asking you to require COVID vaccinations for students. My children's schools send out notices of positive COVID cases nearly daily. This is incredibly stressful, not just because my husband, who is also an MDUSD teacher, and I fear for the safety of all of our children, but because when our own kids have to take time off of school to quarantine, one of us has to stay out of the classroom so we can be at school with them. This means our students are left in the hands of subs. And as you well know, in the best of times, sub days can get a little bit Lord of the Flies. These days, in our acute sub shortage, little learning, if any, is happening when the teacher is out. While it is true that students under 12 are not yet eligible for COVID-19 vaccination, this is expected to change in October or November of this year to include students ages 5 through 11. In short, politics should not get in the way of science. Let's vaccinate our kids so we can continue to learn in person together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that I believe is all of the cards under public comment. I just want to make sure our cards are in the right place. How many cards? So next we have district organizations at regular board meetings. This is 9.1. A single spokesperson of each recognized district organization may make a brief presentation. Items are limited to those which are informal, informational. Okay. Oh, I see. The other cards are a different item. All right. Okay. So we have Carmen Terrones and then Anita Johnson.
Good evening, board members, superintendent, and Mount Diablo community. My name is Carmen Terrones. I'm Local 1 CST Unit President, and I'm here tonight to address some serious concerns that my unit has been trying to resolve for quite some time now without success. There are many issues that are brought to HR, and they take forever to be resolved. They don't respond to our emails. I printed and I forgot them. I had a stack of constant emails to HR with some issues that kept on rolling over from every ER meeting that we have because Dr. Scudero cannot make decisions without checking with his boss, Dr. Rubio, to take a decision. So sometimes I'm wondering, why am I meeting with Dr. Scudero if he can't take any decisions? He has to go back to Dr. Rubio. So regardless, these are issues that constantly continue to go back, and there's some that have started last October, with the out of class pay. Actually, I'm going to go in order, so otherwise I go in circles. I'm starting to feel discriminated because HR never respond to my emails, and this has been going on since I had Lisa Davis, a female, also unit rep. She never got responses, or it was just delayed. Every time my new business agent, Dan Harper, emails HR, boom, right away. So I don't know what it is. Maybe my accent, they don't like my accent, God knows. But anyway, I wish that I'd at least get a response saying, hey, I got your email, let me work on it, I'll get back to you. But it's not happening. The out of class pay issues have started last October when grievances started early this year and still unresolved. The attorney that was hired by Mount Diablo District continued to report that she's waiting on Mount Diablo to provide the necessary information she had requested numerous times. Our contract is not being honored as written. I have many members that are working 2 or 3 desks due to vacant positions and shortage of subs. My members are being asked to submit an itemized timesheet all the time. This is ridiculous and disrespectful to my members. For Dr. Rubio, you can't do 2 desks at a time. Believe me, it can be done. We're women, we can do it. And we have been doing it for years, but we have been compensated properly. It's not happening now. Members are, just an example, a member that averaged $17.99 an hour, working 7 hours a day at the elementary, they make a minimum of $125 a day. If he or she requests 5% out of class for that day, it will be about $6.30. A week, it will be $31.48. but HR is demanding an itemized timesheet, meaning I work 8 o'clock to 8:20 in the morning doing attendance duties, then I go back to my desk, and then I come back at 12 and I work for another 45 minutes. That's what they're asking. That has never been done. Past practice. I've been here 24 years, and that item in my contract has never been changed, has never been questioned until recently. Anyway, I have 5 grievances waiting and waiting. One of my members that filed the grievance is now a DMA confidential person. This is how long it's taken. I think that woman probably have forgotten that she filed this grievance, but regardless. Layoff procedure, CST contract article 36, page 47, section 105 reads, a written notice of layoff shall be given to affected employees not less than 60 days prior to effective date of the layoff. The district shall notify local 1 prior to its giving layoff notices to affected employees. One of my members was called by its administrator and told, I am releasing you because we don't need you right now. Releasing you? Releasing to what? Apparently, this is in food services. Apparently, because of the free breakfast and lunches, they don't need her for about what, a year and a half, I don't know. But in the meantime, since last week that this meeting took place, she's been working in the print shop. She's been used to work the COVID-19 handling, providing forms and so on. I didn't know until I saw the agenda today. That's not acceptable. They're violating the contract right there. Our contract for 2018-2021 that took almost 2.5 years to be in place expired on 6/30/21. So right now, again, we are with our contract. We have met 2 or 3 times, but Mount Diablo is stating that they can't present any economic proposals until mid-October due to waiting for an approved budget from fiscal. I thought the budget was already approved in June. But anyway, I don't know who's lying, because the BAC said that they will have an approved budget maybe in November, but negotiation is telling us mid-October. So which one is lying? And then we have 2 more meetings coming up next Monday and the 27th. So if they're not ready to propose any budget monetary money, then why are we wasting our time? I am taking time away from my desk, putting my other co-workers there to be exposed to work out of class without compensation. The CST calendar, my members are still waiting for it. I have members that they don't know if they're going to work their breaks, and they have childcare issues. Last year, 2 of them ended up having to take vacation or something like that to stay home with their kids because they didn't know whether or not they were working on time. Because, you know, childcare nowadays, you need to let them know ahead of time. Up to now, we have assisted HR to finalize the CST calendar, which is not our duty or responsibility, but we had just to make sure that it was done on time. It hasn't happened. Members went on vacation, came back, kept on asking. I had a meeting today, still has not been going out. I asked at the last ER, I think it was last Monday, I asked Dan Escudero, where are we with this? He doesn't know. He was going to check with Dr. Rubio. Okay. This type of disrespect is affecting also the morale of my members, you know, because respect goes both ways. It's not something that is earned just because you are who you are. You respect me, I respect you. Right now, I am starting to lose respect again from this district because I'm not getting responses. My members are being disrespected. My members are being asked to work out of class without compensation. I continue to hear about Mount Diablo being in declining enrollment. For the FICMAC report recommendations, we should have declined the employees as well. That hasn't happened, but we have an additional HR director. And I understand that there was a mistake or an error on the board agenda because I saw that the associate general counsel was being promoted to general counsel, and I think that was removed. And no disrespect to Cesar, I know you do a wonderful job, but if there's no money for us, the little people, how can there be more money for administrators? Okay, I can go on and on, but I think I just gave you an idea of what's going on with my unit. We have been here, we have been called essential employees. Treat us as that. Pay us, respect us, respond to emails. That's what I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Torres. Next, we have Anita Johnson and then Sylvia Venturino.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Wonderful. I'm Anita Johnson, President of Mount Diablo Education Association. My pronouns are she and her. Medea is a united group of educators standing together for the benefit of students of the Mount Diablo Unified School District. Students need a qualified teacher in every classroom and a qualified staff member in every position. The work of education is about relationships. Students need to be supported by caring, talented individuals. And one of the most important responsibilities of the school district is to ensure the best possible people are available to meet our students' needs. The ability to attract and retain qualified staff is a critical component of our district's ability to provide a great education to all students. That ability is in serious jeopardy because we have not had a salary increase since 2017. Your employees deserve a salary increase. We have gone 4 years without a salary increase. In the last round of negotiations, the district agreed on 5.5% salary increase after 15 months of negotiations. After the pandemic began, the salary increase was rejected due to the concerns about the financial impact of the pandemic. Thanks to extra funding from the state and federal governments, the district has experienced no ongoing financial distress due to the pandemic and is actually in a much better position financially today. The unaudited actuals that you will review this evening show that the district's ending balance has increased by $41 million and now stands at $89 million. This is positive and encouraging news. We share the board's desire to maintain the district's financial health. The positive ending balance in the unaudited actuals leads us to believe more than ever that the district will be able to improve the salary schedule. While we are more optimistic than ever about the district's ability to fund a salary increase, we realize the district's financial situation is still a cause for concern and careful action. We may need more information to determine and assess the situation and are appreciative that Dr. Clark is committed to financial transparency. As we project the financial situation into the future year, declining enrollment is a cause for concern, but declining enrollment should not impact, it should impact employment, but not salaries. Projected enrollment declines will impact the number of teachers needed by the district, but should not impact the salary schedule. The salary schedule should be increased each year to ensure that the district can continue to attract and retain highly qualified teachers and staff. MDUSD salaries are the lowest in 7 nearby school districts. To bring our salaries to the average for those districts would take an increase of 10.6%. Most of the schedules in the other districts will increase again several times over the next 3 years. Furthermore, your employees need a salary increase. Salaries are not keeping up with inflation. Employees in our district are losing buying power every year we go without a salary increase. Prices increased by 2.4% in 2018, by 1.8% in 2019, by 2.3% in 2020, and are projected to increase by 2.2% this year. Compounded, prices have increased by almost 9% in the last 4 years. These estimates of inflation do not even include the rapidly escalating costs of purchasing a home, which is beyond reach for too many district employees. Uncompetitive salaries are causing our district to become a training ground for other districts. Students deserve to have teachers who remain in the district and who have extensive teaching experience. Too many of our teachers are leaving for other school districts for higher pay. This cannot be permitted to continue. Your employees expect a salary increase. Medea is a united group of educators standing together for the benefit of the students of the Mount Diablo Unified School District. Students need a qualified teacher in every classroom and a qualified staff member in every position. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Sylvia Venturino.
I'm vertically challenged. Can you hear me? Yeah, thanks.
Yes.
Good evening, Superintendent Clark and members of the board. My name is Sylvia Venturino. I'm a district-wide bilingual school psychologist and the co-president of the Mount Diablo School Psychologists Association, representing school psychologists and behavioral health specialists. I wish to inform you of the difficulties faced by our unit. Due to the district's unwillingness to bargain fairly, our department has been decimated. We have lost more than a quarter of our staff to other districts and roles, all of which pay their employees substantially more than Mount Diablo Unified. We have lost highly qualified school psychologists and behavioral health specialists with many years of experience, extraordinary skills, professional licenses, and devoted connections to students and families. We began this year short-staffed with numerous vacancies despite active recruitment since early last spring. Our school psychologists and behavioral health specialists meet the mental health needs of our most vulnerable students, conduct hundreds of psychoeducational assessments yearly, and provide services to support students' individualized education programs, IEPs. There are more than 4,000 students in Mount Diablo Unified who have IEPs, and we have had a role in most of their plans, including comprehensive initial psychoeducational evaluations, triennial assessments, ERMS assessments, and the provision of related services such as counseling, therapy, and other supports. Many of our positions are cost neutral because of our ability to bill Medi-Cal, a fact that the HR department conveniently seems to forget during bargaining. When the COVID pandemic removes us all from school sites, our group never stopped working. We never stopped providing services to our students. We crafted strategies to continue serving students responsibly and safely during the pandemic. We continue to conduct psychoeducational evaluations, and we continue to provide much needed mental health services to our students. While serving kids, our members kept the district in compliance with state and federal regulations, which allow the district to avoid expensive litigation. Our 2018-19 tentative agreement is on tonight's agenda with the recommendation for the board to reject it. We are disheartened by this. We have always come to the bargaining table in good faith, yet we, like all other bargaining groups in NDUSD, are still working under an expired contract. Our contract expired in 2019. We are stuck in the past, and we do not want to be in the past. We want to move forward. We had filed impasse due to stalled negotiations for a limited 2018-19 contract and met with state mediators on January 23rd, 2020. We signed a modest tentative agreement with the district on that date more than a year and a half ago. Then the COVID pandemic hit and our focus turned to developing plans to enable us to work safely during a worldwide pandemic. We worked very hard to craft 4 different side letters, MOUs, during COVID, which allowed us to safely provide services to students during distance learning and hybrid learning. Then, once the distance learning and hybrid learning were coming to an end and COVID MOUs were all done, the district decided to renege on our 2018-19 agreement. This agreement was perfectly fine when we all signed it in front of the PERB mediators on January 23rd, 2020, when we all shook hands in agreement and we were all happy to move forward. But it suddenly became a problem once distance learning and hybrid learning were ending, the mediators were gone, and HR had a new team. Suddenly, all prior bargaining agreements just dissolved. According to HR, they are not making changes to past years and they just want to close past years and just go forward. Is this bargaining in good faith? We signed this tentative agreement with the district more than a year and a half ago, yet it is on the agenda today. In June, the district team told us 3 times that the board did not approve our TA, then stated that the board rejected our TA. We continually asked for documentation and there was none. Clearly, our tentative agreement was not rejected by the board because it is on the agenda for today's board meeting. Is this bargaining in good faith? The district has a chief of HR, a director of HR, and now another new director of HR, yet we are still stuck in 2019. and no bargaining units have current contracts. Emails sent to HR seem to get lost in the ether, as replies are rare and replies with accurate information are even more rare. We keep losing colleagues, yet the district keeps gaining directors. Employee groups are shoved to the side and kids are losing services. Our students have returned to school to begin the 2021-2022 school year, a year during which the demands for psychological services is expected to reach extraordinary levels. Student stress and anxiety levels are very high as they try to navigate school after being away for so long. The highly contagious COVID Delta variant has made students and families even more anxious. We do not have enough staff to be able to provide the extra mental health support students need this school year, let alone the mandated services that we always provide. Our counseling clinic is full at the start of the year due to shortages in our staff. We do not have enough clinic psychologists to serve students and families. Students who normally would have been provided counseling services and WRAP services are now unable to receive them. We truly are concerned with the ability to provide services to our 4,000 plus students in special education, as we are continuing to receive assessment requests as well as requests for therapy services that we will soon not be able to accommodate in a timely manner according to state and federal timelines. Requests for assessments and services do not diminish. The related mandated timelines do not cease, but we do not have a staff able to complete our jobs. Our students will not be able to receive services due to the numerous vacancies in our department. This is very alarming and could have been avoided if the district had only bargained fairly. Like all other districts, Mount Diablo received hefty funding from the state this past year. Other districts compensated their employees fairly. Yet in Mount Diablo, funds are shuffled around in an apparent shell game and the district cries broke. A fleet of new vehicles can be purchased, various director positions can be created, but the district somehow cannot compensate the employees that directly work with kids. The district recommends that the board reject the mediated tentative agreement between MDUSD and the Mount Diablo School Psychologists Association because they say that the fiscal impact will be $8.5 million. This amount is absolutely ridiculous and based on false information and incorrect interpretations of contract language. If the district were to compensate unpaid wages, back pay, for the MUTSBA members who worked in 2018-19 and are actually still here, it would cost the district about the same as a new HR director. This is nowhere near the $8.5 million mark that they mentioned. We expect the district to come to the table and negotiate according to fair labor practices. Mount Diablo students deserve mental health services. They deserve appropriate assessments and supports. Mount Diablo Unified School District employees deserve fair contracts. All of the employee bargaining groups do. Please, we ask the district, do not attempt to pit one union group against another as a way of weakening the units. The union groups have no desire to oppose each other. We are all here to serve the students and families of the district. Mount Diablo, we ask you, please work to build trust with the different employee groups. Please bargain in good faith. Board members, you hear from the district during closed session. We ask you to please consider our information as well so that it will assist you in making a moral, equitable, and responsible decision when it comes to voting on agenda item 17.7. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. Okay, that takes us to item 10.0, recognitions and resolutions. 10.1 is review and potential approval of board resolution 2122-6 for personnel with variable term waivers. Dr. Clark?
Yep, and Dr. Rubio is going to take this item.
Good evening, board members. Before you, we request your approval for a variable term waiver for 8 applicants who are requesting additional time to complete certain requirements for their credentials.
Thank you very much. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve board resolution 21/22-6 for the personnel with variable term waivers. The governing board approved the resolution 20/21.6 for personnel with, it's repetitive. So I make a motion, we approve the resolution.
Second.
All right, thank you very much. So motion is to approve board resolution 2122-6. Thank you very much. The motion by trustee Mason and second by trustee Mayo. Any discussion? We'll take that to a vote. Trustee Mason,
Yes.
trustee Mayo,
Yes.
trustee McFerrin,
Yes.
trustee Nzewi.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. I want to say with concurrence, but our student board member is not here. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. Item 10.2, review and a potential approval of resolution 2128-8 proclaiming September 15th, 2021 to October 15th, 2021 as Hispanic Heritage Month.
Great.
Dr.
So,
Clark?
yes, President Count, I'd like to present this resolution for consideration for the to the board. So it's Hispanic Heritage Month, being September 15th through October 15th. Whereas the month of September 15th to October 15th is designated as Hispanic Heritage Month by the United States Congress in 1988. And whereas the huge and significant impact of Hispanic and Latino cultures and their centuries-old traditions are manifested in achievements, customs, and laws of this state and nation. And now therefore be it resolved that the Mount Diablo Unified School District Governing Board hereby recognizes, honors, and celebrates the many contributions, heritage, and history of Hispanics, Latinos, Latinas, and Latinx people during our annual commemoration and proclamation of Hispanic Heritage Month in a manner appropriate with COVID-19 regulations. And be it further resolved that this executed resolution be distributed to all schools within the Mount Diablo Unified School District. And so with that, I would just like to say that we have a large population of Latino and Latinx students within our district, and each school, each educator should take time to recognize the accomplishments and achievements of the Latinos before us from the past and current. And so with that, I will now put this resolution in the hands of the board.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Clark. Do I hear a motion on this item?
Move that we approve resolution 2022-8 proclaiming September 15th to October 15th, 2021 as Hispanic Heritage Month.
Second. Thank you. Motion by trustee Nzewi and second by trustee McFerrin. Any discussion on this item?
I believe we have one speaker on this.
Or do you want to introduce the speaker?
Oh, okay. Please, okay.
Okay. And so I tend to crowdsource when I'm in, not charge isn't the right word, but when I lead the effort to get a resolution on the agenda. And so I had two folks work on them, Sarah and Amy, but Sylvia is here to talk about it. So I had two MDOSD staff help craft this. One a librarian, one part of MedSpa, and but neither could be here today, but you're going to read Sarah's words. Yes, thank you.
Hello, I'm Sylvia Venturino, bilingual school psychologist at Mount Diablo Unified. And I am going to present the information created by my colleague, co-president and good friend, Sarah Cabezas. Sarah had the honor to work on this proclamation with Amy. Unfortunately, Sarah cannot be here this evening, so she asked me to read this statement. Sarah and I are both daughters of immigrants. Sarah's father came from Ecuador. My parents came from Argentina, so we're both first generation and have many commonalities. And we both use our culture and our language daily in our roles in Mount Diablo. Sarah as a behavioral health specialist and myself as a school psychologist. So I'm reading this on behalf of Sarah. I am honored and humbled to be able to co-present the proclamation for Hispanic Heritage Month this school year. Our Hispanic, Latino, and Latinx communities are rich with love and support and continue to overcome obstacles and display resiliency. During this past year, I heard how our Hispanic community came together to support each other in ways that make me proud to be Latina. From taking care of neighbors to supporting other students with academic tutoring, The Hispanic community showed up for each other. It was not known before. If it was not known before, let it be made clear now that family, community, and culture rank high in our lives. This month, we invite and encourage all of the schools to spread knowledge of various Hispanic and Latino cultures and history by sharing daily historical and cultural facts in their morning announcements. This simple gesture offers acknowledgement and respect of our Hispanic and Latino population's culture and history. We hope that this act will be a start to including Hispanic and Latino heritage in curriculum, not just during Hispanic Heritage Month, but throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation and for all of everyone's work on this resolution. Much appreciated. Any other discussion on this item before we take it to a vote?
I have. Call me Sophia from the Golden Girls, who has a story for everything. So as Dr. Clark alluded to, as of last year, 43%, last school year that we just ended, 43% of our students in our district are Hispanic or Latino, and that's by far the largest represented ethnicity in our district. Yet when I was running for school board and learning from community members who live in Area 3 and went to school in Area 3, it was disheartening to hear from young adult former students and parents of current students how disenfranchised they felt in this district, rarely seeing themselves in their lessons or experiencing straight up racism from administrators and staff. However, what is encouraging by the passage of yet another resolution honoring another rich heritage that this board really enjoys passing, even though to some it may seem just like a waste of time, but what it does, not by itself, but what it starts is allow us to create a culture in our district that begins to dismantle the racist culture that historically permeated our district brick by brick. It's slow and it's painful, but the idea that any student in America, but especially in California, doesn't have a good foundation of the history of Latinos and Hispanics in California and throughout our country, I think is criminal and immoral. So to Sarah's suggestion of everyone providing a fact in their daily announcements, I found a resource online put out by the California Office of Historic Preservation. It's called Latinos in 20th Century California. And though it's only about 200 pages long, it would be a great resource for our educators to reference when teaching about Latinos in California, from how this state was built, to politics, to immigration, to music and arts. It can easily be found by Googling California Office of Historic Preservation, Latinos in 20th Century California. And I look forward to passing this resolution.
Thank you, Trustee Nzeri. Any further discussion on this item?
Yes.
Trustee
I would
Mayo.
like to say something. I appreciate the addition of the language between our last meeting and this meeting. I think it is very important and profound. I also appreciate Trustee Nzeri's reference to the support materials that individuals can use in the implementation of events to happen at our schools. But there's a part of one of the resolves that was in the previous version that I think is important, and I would like to make a motion to add that information, and perhaps we can go from there. I move in resolved number 1 to insert the following words after the word month, and encourages all schools and classrooms to commemorate this occasion with appropriate instructional materials. It would then read, now therefore be it resolved that the Mount Diablo Unified School District Governing Board hereby recognizes, honors, and celebrates the many contributions of heritage and history of Hispanics, Latinos, Latinas, and Latinx people during our annual commemoration and proclamation of Hispanic Heritage Month, and encourages all schools and classrooms to commemorate this occasion with appropriate instructional materials in a manner appropriate with COVID-19 regulations and I'd like to speak to my motion.
All right, go ahead.
Um,
Do we have a second for the motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion by Trustee Mayo, second by Trustee Nzeri and Trustee Mayo.
I know that those of us who work in our schools understand that we do have this curriculum and that it is used in our classrooms. However, our public doesn't understand that we are putting a special emphasis on the curriculum during this particular month. And I believe that by adding the language that it shows our public that we really want the instructional materials to be used. And yes, I do agree and did not take the time to make add in that the observances should occur year round, not just during the 1 month. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Mayo. Any discussion on the proposed addition? Okay, so first we'll vote on the addition and then on the motion as a whole. So we'll put that to a vote, Trustee Mayo's motion. So Trustee Mayo, how do you vote?
Yes.
Trustee Mason,
Yes.
Trustee McFerrin,
Yes.
Trustee Nzewi.
Yes.
I also vote yes. The additional motion passes 5-0. So now we have a complete motion with the motion by Trustee Nzewi, including the addition from Trustee Mayo, and we'll take that to a vote. Trustee Nzewi,
Yes.
Trustee McFerrin,
Yes.
Trustee Mayo, Trustee Mason.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you all very much for your thoughtfulness and care on this very important issue. All right. Okay, that takes us to item 10.3, review and potential approval of Board Resolution 2122-12 for personnel with provisional internship permits.
This is also going to be Dr. Rubio.
Good evening again. As the board knows, the California Commission on Teaching Credentialing no longer issues emergency permits, but doesn't issue provisional internship permits. So we have one candidate for your review and approval this evening.
Thank you very much. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion. We approve resolution 21/22-14 in recognition of, 22-12 for personnel with provisional internship permits.
Second.
Thank you very much. Motion by Trustee Mason, second by Trustee Mayo. Any discussion? Okay, we'll take it to a vote. Trustee Mason,
Yes.
Trustee Mayo,
Yes.
Trustee McFerrin,
Yes.
Trustee Nzewi.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. All right, that takes us to item 10.4, review and potential approval of resolution 2122-14 in recognition of Suicide Prevention Month. Dr. Clark?
Yes, it pains me to have to bring a resolution like this forward, but I think that it's absolutely necessary. And so resolution number 21/22-14, Suicide Prevention Month, September 2021. So whereas suicide is the fourth leading cause of death among youth between 10 and 14 years of age. However, suicide is preventable. And whereas the Mount Diablo Unified School District is committed to helping schools develop systems of support and interventions that focus on meeting the academic, social, and emotional needs of students. And therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Mount Diablo Unified School District declares September as September Prevention Awareness Month. Be it further resolved that the Board of Education encourages parents, guardians, and the community to support the work of staff to help prevent suicides. President Cowan, this resolution is now in the hands of the board.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. Do I hear a motion on this item?
I'll move to approve resolution 21/22-14 declaring September 2021 Suicide Prevention Month in Mount Diablo Unified School District.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion by Trustee McFerrin and second by Trustee Nzewi. Any discussion on this item? Trustee Nzewi?
So my mom lives with chronic depression, and it's extremely hard to see someone you love suffer so deeply. And there's been times in my life, in my adult life, that it like the commercials for depression pills don't even touch the surface of how how deeply someone can suffer when they are struck with depression. I've lived through 2 times in my life when my mom consistently thought about ending her life, but luckily she never made an attempt. That's because she had the proper care around her that allowed her to feel safe sharing those thoughts so that she could be kept safe until she was better. She told her doctors, her therapists, and me. What I've learned from my experience is that depression lies, and it takes a yeoman's effort to convince someone suffering so greatly that it's all a lie. I appreciate that this resolution lays out steps our district will take to develop a crisis plan. The resolution cites a study, Dr. Clark didn't read this part, but it cites a study that of 20,000 students in grades 7 to 12 found that school connectedness was the only school-related factor that consistently protected students from engaging in unhealthy behaviors. I just want us all to be clear that depression and suicide is not an unhealthy behavior. It's an illness and should be treated as such. So I want to thank, ironically, our school psychologists, behavioral health specialists, counselors, and other staff who do everything they can to keep our students healthy and safe. And I look forward to passing this.
Thank you, Trustee Nzeri. Any further discussion on this item? Okay. I had a few just resources I wanted to mention related to this they're timely. One is tomorrow, September 9th. There is a forum, suicide prevention forum, led by Contra Costa Health Services. It's a virtual conversation on youth and suicide from 4 to 7 p.m. And anyone can join. It's free. Learn how to support yourself or a loved one. And you can register online for it at cchealth.org. And then the usual number to always keep in everyone's phone is if you or someone you know is experiencing an emotional crisis or having thoughts of suicide, call 211 or 1-800-833-2900 or text HOPE to 20121. So that's an important resource to keep in mind. Also, starting next week, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI California, and the California Department of Education will be hosting several virtual trainings for NAMI on-campus high school. So that's an opportunity for high school students to really take some leadership on this. And that's at namicalifornia.org, so NAMICA.org. And lastly, I wanted to mention there's an excellent resource right now that many of our educators have shared at Learning for Justice, and it's called Toolkit for Demystifying the Mind, and has a lot of great information about how to incorporate these things into the classroom or the home. And lastly, I would like to say this is a good time for us as a board to look at updating our board policy and AR 5141.52 on suicide prevention to make sure that it includes the latest best practices, which includes increasing staff awareness of the higher rates of suicide among certain groups. These groups include students bereaved by suicide, students with disabilities, mental illness or substance use disorders, students experiencing homelessness or out-of-home settings such as foster care, and students who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning youth. It's crucial that we provide key professional development in these areas and ensure that all of our protocols are as clear and strong as they can be. With that, we'll take this to a vote. If there's no further discussion. All right. Trustee Nzeri?
Yes.
Trustee McFerrin?
Yes.
Trustee Mason?
Yes.
Trustee Mayo?
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you all very, very much. Okay, that takes us to item 10.5, review and potential approval of resolution 2122-15 in recognition of Deaf Awareness Month, International Week of Deaf People, September 20th to 26th, 2021, and International Day of Sign Languages, September 23rd, 2021. Dr. Clark.
President Count, I would like to present to you tonight Resolution 21/22-15, Deaf Awareness Month, International Week of Deaf People, and International Day of Sign Languages. Whereas the deaf population includes a wide range of individuals, from those who were born profoundly deaf and use American Sign Language, ASL, as a primary means of communication, to those with a degree of hearing loss who use hearing aids or other forms of amplification and communication modes. And now therefore, the governing board of the Mount Diablo Unified School District hereby proclaims the month of September as Deaf Awareness Month. The week beginning September 20th through 26th as International Week of Deaf People, and September 23rd, 2021 as International Day of Sign Language, and be it further resolved that this resolution be distributed to all schools within the district. President Cowan, this resolution is now in the hands of the board.
Thank you very much, Dr. Clark. Do I hear a motion?
Madam President, I would move that the board approve Resolution 21/22-15, Deaf Awareness Month, International Week of Deaf People, and International Day of Sign Languages.
I'll second.
Thank you. A motion by trustee Mayo, second by trustee Nzewi. Any further discussion on this item? Trustee Nzewi?
So I'll bet that most of us didn't know that there was such a thing as deaf culture and that there's this whole beautiful culture surrounding deafness. It's not just a language. Well, I wouldn't know either, except that a long time ago at a Girl Scout camp not that far away. Did anybody go to Camp Bofine in the 80s? Nobody? Oh man, best Girl Scout camp ever. I got to go to a session that was for both girls who were deaf and girls who were not deaf. And we all camped together. And that's when I learned it's so much more than just being able to hear and using sign language to communicate. But deafness is so much more than that. But get this, did you know that just like variations in American English or British English, American Sign Language has dialects? So this I only learned during COVID. But there's just like there's Black English or African American vernacular English, there's Black American Sign Language, and which also includes its own culture. And there's also, just like spoken word, there's even regional dialects and accents in sign language. So if you use Duolingo, then I also encourage you to download the app Sign School, because it'll give you a new sign every day so that you can learn very slowly American Sign Language as well.
I was busy writing that down. Thank you very much. Really great information and resources. Any further discussion on this item? All right, we'll take this to a vote. Trustee Mayo,
Yes.
trustee Nzewi,
Yes.
trustee McFerrin,
Yes.
trustee Mason.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you all very much. Okay. All right, so that brings us to our reports and information section of our agenda. Item 11.1 is the staff presentation of Growing Healthy Kids Garden Education Program.
I'm on now. Okay, awesome. Good evening to Board of Trustees, President Cowan, Dr. Adam Clark. I'd like to introduce a couple co-presenters, Lainey Klein King and Tamara Helfer, who are actually the program coordinators, as well as Dominic Machi and Principal Aaron McFerrin that will be presenting this brief overview of our program. So if you take a look at this picture, Bancroft Elementary Garden, this is actually a picture that Dr. Clark uses quite often. And we has never been able to share where this picture actually came from, and it came from one of our garden programs. We're in the process of rebranding the program. We believe that it's morphed away from NGSS and the garden into something quite large. It's the idea of using outdoor spaces, school meals, and academics to advance district goals around academics, physical and mental health, and community building. This is not only an initiative that has been taken notice in Mount Diablo, but actually Nick Anakshit from Farm to School program lead from CDFA, which is the California Department of Food and Agriculture Office, Farm to Fork, has actually made some comments about our program. And since its inception, which actually very much started 20 or more years ago with after school program gardens, it is something that has grown to be recognized as something that's more just in the garden, but is expanded into our classrooms during the instructional day. So as I mentioned, this is not new. 20 or more years ago, and Trustee Mason has the historical perspective. It started with our CARES after school program. And I just really want to recognize Eric Rico and all of the staff in our after school program, because they have built something that actually this program and this initiative has actually, you know, it's bloomed out of, We're talking about the garden. So this is something where it was originally just at a few Title I schools. And as we saw the power of it and the engagement of it, and especially with the look of NGSS in the garden as an idea and using phenomena-based education as a way to engage students in STEM, we found that that was something that was just so incredibly engaging that we wanted to see, is there a way to open it up? Is there a way to make it more connected so it can be at multi-schools and not just identified as a program at Title I sites? So we do really want to recognize all the work at our ASP programs and our CARES staff. The work that's been done and as it's morphed is actually something that does support our instructional initiatives. And if you can kind of see in the very teeny tiny writing, the high quality and community engagement, high quality instructional practices, as well as college and career readiness. What's kind of interesting about this is that it's very similar to the initiatives around procuring local food and then taking a look at making sure that we have food and nutrition education for our students to make sure that it's a holistic wellness approach, as well as really utilizing, again, outdoor spaces and school gardens as a way to educate students and engage them in a larger community conversation about wellness. I'd like to introduce Dominic Machi.
And good evening. The slide that you see here is the integration collaboration across MDUSD, and that is in 3 sections of the district, which is Ed Services, Food and Nutrition Services, and of course, Maintenance and Operation. It takes really all those 3 departments or those 3 groups to bring these school garden programs really together and to move them forward into the future. As you can see at the top column in 2014 and 2021, some of the work that was done. And I'll start with educational services. So the next generation science standards in the garden in elementary school, serving 5,000 students per year. Teacher professional development on experimental education. In these years, especially as you know, in 2020, the Food and Nutrition Services Department received the Eat Real certification. So we set a standard now of quality that we want to serve to our students that supports this, as well as the warehouse overhaul, which we are experiencing right now as we speak. So we're doing wonderful there. Local procurement. And local procurement is very special because for us to be able to support our regional economy and our manufacturers, especially really in the middle of the pandemic time that we're having right now with procurement. There are many school districts, many of us are going through challenges because there are breaks in the supply chain. And it's something we have never seen before. And so local procurement, especially right now, is going to be very important. Sustainable food sourcing, which is something we are working on, will come out probably in the next month or 2. Scratch cooking we'll try to continue to do. And of course, we remove 10 pounds of sugar from basically our school meals just by reducing flavored milk and fruit juices from our program. Now, when you go into maintenance and operations, the school gardens, as they're supporting that in maintenance, outdoor learning spaces, a 3D curriculum, and then shade structures and irrigation can help support that whole physical infrastructure of the gardens themselves. Now, moving into this year in 21-22, the goals are, of course, is to continue some field trip programs, 4th grade field trip to the cafeteria, which is important so they can see where their food is being prepared and experience that connection. Middle school garden education, and then youth farm stands, which is something, and I experienced when I was up at Davis Joint Unified, which really engages the kids as far as the growing and then also the economics of it as well. And then community plant exchanges. For us in Food and Nutrition Services, obviously California's meals, school meals for all, which is going to continue over the next 2, 3, and maybe ongoing, is going to be huge, and we're seeing that right now as we speak. 4th grade field trip to the cafeteria, which we completely welcome. I always say to my staff, we are educators as well. Everybody is an educator in the school district, all of our employees. Our Eat Real partnership will continue as they also received a grant from the California Department of Agriculture to continue to do the work with us. And sourcing from really minority, smaller farmers. We're going to continue to do that as we work through, especially over these next couple of months. And then just new educational signage, which is basically the smarter lunchroom principles, showing foods where their food comes from. Hopefully we can get salad bars back into our cafeterias. I hope that is where we want to be. We may not get there in the next 3 or 4 months, but hopefully we can get there by sometime next year. It just depends on human nature. So And then lastly, in the maintenance and operations is major infrastructure improvements to gardens, especially at Riverview. I was out there today. It is unbelievable. I know it's a lot of work going, but they're making pathways and they're starting to really clear out and they have a plan. So just so proud to meet the staff out there and they're so energized, which is great. The same at Oak Grove Middle School and Wren Elementary School. And then shade structures are very important. If you're going to have that outdoor learning space, those outdoor classrooms, you need to have shade structures for students, especially when they're out there in the sun time, and then to continue just improvements in facilities for outdoor learning, because we know that it's important and we see the benefits of that with the children. So I'll bring up Tamara to speak about collaboration in the district as well and other NGSC partners.
Good evening, everybody. I think farm to school programs in schools in California and across the country often come from either food services or educational services or individual efforts by teachers or principals or parents. I think what's incredibly remarkable about the program at Mount Diablo is that we have Jennifer Sachs up here from Educational Services, Dominic Machi from Food Services, we have Melanie Koslow from Maintenance and Operations, all working together to further this. So there's really good collaboration across departments, which is something that Nick Anisich from the CDFA pointed out. And also with partners from MDUSD, like Jennifer Sachs mentioned, CARES ASP has been just a key partner since before the program started, 20 years or more. And they're an integrated part of both food service, getting food out to the neediest in our community, as well as their after school programs using gardens. The contractors who have been involved since formal activities started in 2014 at the district level, there have been a lot of us as independent contractors, and I just kind of wanted to highlight those because a lot of them have never made it up to the board to be presented, and so they're Kathy Davis is shown on the left with she's the CARES garden educator overseeing all the CARES gardens, not just at Riverview, but at all the CARES sites. And the contractors, independent contractors, are the 11 people on the right. And we've had 8 others in the past 7 years who have also helped build the program. So this is really a community and district collaboration across the departments and with our partners. So as I mentioned, there are a lot of really innovative programs and lessons being taught at individual classrooms across the district, including the impressive program at Mount and programs and lessons led by individual elementary, middle, and high school teachers and in the ASP. But in 2014, we started formal farm to school education during the daytime, during the school day, school-wide, where every student at a school was brought into the garden multiple times throughout the school year to see the progression throughout the school year. At that same time, food service started formal farm to school activities with local procurement, tracking local procurement, and building up to where these impressive changes that Dominic has spoken to. Right now, we're offering lessons in 9 elementaries and 2 middle schools to every student in those schools throughout the school year. There's on an average of about 12 lessons per student throughout the school year, both in garden, science education, NGSS in the garden, as well as health and wellness, cooking and nutrition education. We've done a lot of capital improvements to different school gardens, both in collaboration with the ASP and separately. There have been major improvements like doubling the school size at Fair Oaks. We installed a new garden at Bel Air, rebuilding the garden at Rio Vista. There have been major capital improvements to the gardens at Bancroft, El Monte, Gregory Gardens, Pleasant Hill Elementary, Sequoia Elementary, and Sun Terrace. This next year, this current year, 2021-2022, will be a year of significant program expansion. We have support from grants from the USDA and from the CDFA, the California Department of Food and Ag. And we are starting elementary field trips to the Riverview Middle School garden. So those will be really experiential hands-on learning opportunities from elementary students to go out to Riverview and see this very impressive 2-acre garden. It's going to include culturally relevant curriculum where we're highlighting contributions from farmers and scientists of color. It's including a community outreach piece with plant exchanges. We're doing a fourth grade field trip to the cafeteria, like Dominic mentioned. So it's an in-school field trip, no transportation required. Really engaging. And we're also supporting a new horticulture elective at Riverview Middle School, which is being offered for the very first time. And we're supporting, there's a garden educator working with all of the science teachers and core teachers at Oak Grove Middle School on their integrating garden education with their IB curriculum. And again, that'll serve every student at Oak Grove. I want to turn it over to Lainey to talk a little bit about why take kids outside.
Question is why not to take kids outside, really? So, I mean, if you look at this picture right here, this is one of our outdoor garden classrooms, and there's an abundance of fresh air and it's beautiful, but there's so many reasons to take kids outside. So among those reasons are kind of the foundation of our daytime garden education program, which is to teach NGSS and Common Core academic standards in the garden, because they emphasize real world phenomena driven learning. I remember one of my first times actually out in the garden, the children were exploring the sunflower leaves and turned one over and found the entire life cycle of a ladybug underneath that sunflower leaf. So while they may have learned about life cycles in the classroom, it integrated that experience, through all their 5 senses. So just you can't beat it. And as far as mental and physical well-being, which we've been discussing a lot tonight, teachers and students are constantly telling us about the social emotional benefits of being outside, how calming it is to be in the school gardens. And while we know this intuitively, there's documented physiological response to being outdoors. So our cortisol levels go down, our endorphins increase, and the students are more calm and relaxed and able to focus in the classroom. Environmental literacy is another core part of our program. So teaching students about their impact on the world and what it means to be sustainable citizens. Students learn everything from climate change to the benefit of growing food locally and organically and restoring native habitats. All of that is covered through outdoor learning. And safe access to the outdoors is also an equity issue. So for many children, even before COVID, school is and was their safe space. And our aim is to ensure that all of our students have access to nature, knowing that not all of them have access to nature at home or even in their neighborhoods. Our MDUSD student wellness policy actually states that nutrition education is an integrated component in our school garden programs. So children do taste each time they come into the garden. They taste something growing, and if it's not available because things have just been planted, they will taste something that's seasonal and local. So what better way to emphasize nutrition than growing and trying new fruits and vegetables? School community building. So there's a saying that nothing brings people together better than a garden, and Trustee Mason knows this better than anyone. But most of our outdoor learning spaces were built together with students and teachers, administrators, community members, and it really takes a village to build and sustain a garden. And that creates a sense of stewardship, ownership, and pride in, the child's space. And it does for the child, but also for everybody involved in putting that space together. Finally, you just simply can't beat the student engagement, which the kids carry straight back into the classroom and into the rest of their day. So this is an infographic from the Children and Nature Network. It documents the findings of 1,160 peer-reviewed studies. These studies speak to the benefits of children learning in, with, and through nature. So something that I had learned, which was actually interesting, is that children benefit also from learning about nature, but it's actually, these studies show that it's learning in and around nature that makes the difference. It doesn't necessarily have to be about nature. So some of the major findings that these studies have shown are that learning outside increases academic success in multiple subjects. In fact, studies have been done with middle schoolers showing that if they see green outside a field, it doesn't have the same impact on their academics as if they see tree canopy and greenery outside of their windows. So seeing that those trees make a huge impact on their math and science scores. And as noted earlier, multiple studies point to the mental health benefits, the most prominent being enhanced attention and higher impulse control. When students are calm and engaged, they are motivated to learn and they carry this motivation with them throughout the school day. So our Growing Healthy Kids program has adopted these evidence-based practices and we use them to promote optimal learning for students. Thank you.
So we're basing our program on not only that research, but our own internal research. And so we've been collecting information from our teachers with regards to what they're seeing in their classrooms when they're talking to kids, when they're hearing them engage in and outside, whether or not they're in the garden or bringing the garden experience into the room. And so, you know, the data is pretty profound that they are seeing that it's improving students' connection to the natural world, their enthusiasm for learning. So what's important also to note is that we're currently waiting on CAST scores because that was another metric we were going to be utilizing in order to take a look at how our students in certain garden programs, when compared to students without garden programs, whether or not their engagement in the CAST score or assessment, which is the California Science Test, whether or not there's any differences with that. We're also pulling attendance data. So this really focuses on the academic achievement. And then this data here is speaking to the social emotional learning, wellness, and their sense of school community. So as we're really needing to take a look at return on investment, and as these programs are being reviewed and the parent groups that are currently contributing to the programs, we want to make sure that we're building in metrics in order to be able to show the impact on our most important stakeholders, which are our students. Principal Erin DeMartini.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to be able to talk from the site level about this program. You can see the quotes up there for yourself. Katie Kuntz and Aurelia Buscemi are not Title I principals, and you can see they are speaking to the importance of this program for their students, their social emotional well-being, their learning. I am a principal at a Title I site, so I can only speak to my experience firsthand. But the quote that says, "This program literally saves lives. Fresh and healthy foods at a grocery store are much more expensive than packaged foods." A lot of our kids, their time in the garden is the first time, the first aha for them that food doesn't come from a package. It comes from the earth. You see a lot of our families, our gardens have signs, both in English and Spanish. "I'm ripe, pick me," or "I'm not ripe, please leave me." You'll see families together after school with the kids leading them with a bag, picking things to take home. I asked my staff today at the staff meeting what they would like me to share. What's already been mentioned, the lessons are all tied to NGSS standards. There's cross-curricular overlap. During distance learning, our garden teacher taught about the people on the land before us in social studies, how they use the land, how they cultivated it, the tools they derive from it. The social emotional benefits, you can't beat learning in the garden. And like Tamara mentioned, a teacher told a funny story today that the garden educator teaches them about the bugs that they find as they're gardening, as they're harvesting the food, and that her kids will now say to her, "Is this a good bug for the garden or is this a bad bug for the garden? We need to ask Miss Woodard." So like a praying mantis today even was a part of their conversation. It wasn't a garden day. This is the most awesome thing to see. It's fun to see them in the garden. Our garden teacher howls to get them back. So you hear little howls all day as they're learning. But it is amazing to go to one of the lessons where these little kiddos from TK to 5th grade are grinding their own pesto with the things that they've harvested. They're helping to turn out zucchini noodles and they're eating these zoodles with the fresh pesto. To watch them vote in the like it, love it, it's not for me, with things that they hadn't heard of before they had these lessons. A lot of them will state, and families will state, my child will come home and say, "I like this. Can we find it? Can we eat it for dinner?" Those partnerships with our parents are so important as well. This program is really important to our PTA and our parents. One of our biggest community building events every year is a PTA sponsored garden day. So parents and kids come out together. They help with whatever our garden educator needs done, whether it's rebuilding the beds, harvesting certain things, working on the drip line. But it's amazing to hear the kids talking to their parents about composting,
about what's seasonal, and just watch these families spending quality time together in the garden. So from a site perspective, this program is vital. The garden educator is a huge heartbeat of our community. The kids adore her, the parents adore her. So we invite you anytime, come out and see our garden, see our program. I think you'll be blown away. Thank you.
Lainey, did you want to share a little bit about this slide?
So recently we have been making a huge effort to create more community partnerships. And one of the ways that we're doing that, that is built into a recent grant that we've received, is to create community plant exchanges. We are partnering with, actually the Contra Costa Public Library approached us, and so they are willing to host our plant exchanges outside. And on our field trips, the children will be planting seeds, which then will be given away at these plant stands to engage the community in plant swaps, where they, the kids can see that what they grew is actually being dispersed throughout their communities. So we're hoping to create multiple plant exchanges. And we are also starting an initiative, Dominic had mentioned this, to source produce from BIPOC and also a local farm that that works with transitional foster youth. And most of those are located in Pittsburgh that we're immediately partnering with. And we're really trying to reach out to those partners to both give them a distribution channel through our cafeteria, but also to just strengthen the community ties. And like Tamara had mentioned, the new curriculum for the Riverview field trips are going to highlight scientists, farmers, and engineers of color. So children will be able to see themselves in these farmers, scientists, and engineers, and also learn how they're connected to the food that we eat and where it comes from. And that's about all on that.
I'll comment that the transitional youth farm, foster youth farm serves a lot of Mount Diablo transitional foster youth. So that's a cool connection. In 2018 through 2020, we had a Real Food in Schools collaborative, an MOU that the Board of Education approved. And one of our key partners in that was LifeLab, who is this is a 40-year-old international leader in garden-based education based in Santa Cruz. And they really liked partnering with us. And I'm delighted to say that they are partnering with us once again. This is unusual. They don't go around looking for school districts to partner with, but they have agreed to a unique partnership with Mount Diablo because they really feel a connection with our academic and wellness concentrations in the Growing Healthy Kids program, and because of the quality of the program. So we have been working with them to ask them to serve as a fiscal sponsor for us for that part of the program that is not housed within Mount Diablo already. And they are willing to do this. So we will be exploring as the months go on what that looks like and be bringing that to you as we gain some clarity on that. But we're really delighted there are curriculum connections. They're developing more and more NGSS in the garden curriculum that we will have access to, just as they've already shared their K through 2 NGSS in the garden curriculum with us already. So the good things happening in the future with that connection.
So just to close, we just want to say that this is certainly a very collaborative effort. And so you're going to see a lot of our partners on the screen, as well as we mentioned, our ASBN Cares program, our PATAs, our PFCs that contribute money in order to make sure this is supported, our Mount Diablo Education Foundation. So again, we just wanted to give you a little bit of information about this as contracts come forward to provide some context, and also to kind of share with you how excited we are to kind of turn the page a little bit from the NGS in the garden, which is very, very targeted, very specific, to something more global, which is just growing healthy kids. So again, thank you to the presenters and thank you for listening.
Oh, thank you so much.
Through the chair, I just have a quick question.
Trustee Mason.
Since you're working with LifeLab, I'm assuming, or I would hope they have some experience with data collection and results, because I mean, if it's grant funded and no grants are asking you for any documentation, more power to you. I have to document everything. But when you start getting into CSI funds and supplemental funds, broken record, and I know people don't like hearing it. And I was a garden educator and trained people, but that's not my role here.
Mhm.
My role here is to make sure money we get, it's spent how it's supposed to be spent, and we have results. I know you can teach anything in the garden and it'll be successful, but you have to be able to make that connection when you're tying it to funds that you have to meet certain populations. So I'm hoping that maybe Life Lab had some experience. After school program used to do that when I was there. We actually had assessments we did that we could show, and we would get phone calls from the state that said, what are you doing? Because your numbers are like over the top. I'm just going to keep hitting that drum. I think it's doable and we need to do it so this becomes sustainable.
I 100% agree. And as you've seen over time, we've been able to share more about what data we're collecting, doing some of the anecdotal, the qualitative, as well as the quantitative. So we've got some quantitative bits and pieces that are coming forward. But to your specific question about Life Lab, the answer is absolutely yes. They actually just recently came into contract with Pajaro School District. And actually, it's a multi-million-dollar contract. They're having this program at every single school site. And that's certainly part of what the return on investment conversation looks like, is these are metrics we're utilizing in order to ensure that these dollars are well invested.
All right, thank you very much. Any other comments, questions? Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for that comprehensive presentation. Really exciting things going on. And like you said, I think the integration across departments is something that is not always seen everywhere, as well as the focus that you have on equity and partnering with our BIPOC farmers, and really making sure that we have access for all of our students to these safe spaces. Very, very good job. I did see, thank you for inviting all of us to the Riverview Garden Day that happened just recently. I was unable to attend, but I'm hoping to be able to come out to another event at the garden sometime soon. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so moving on to item 11.2, annual report by the 2010 Measure C Citizens Bond Oversight Committee.
Great. And I'm seeing if we have a representative from the Measure C.
I see Mr. Ferrante. Welcome, John. I think they are bringing up Measure C report. We just lost our screen for a minute.
Yeah, it's much more comfortable sitting at home in my nice soft chair. There we go.
But this way we get to see you in person. That's the
Oh,
value.
aren't you so lucky? So good evening, board members, Dr. Clark. We have not met. We need to at some point.
Yeah, sounds good.
Being the chair of the Measure C Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, I get to do the presentation. I also got to do this report. Next slide. Oh, I've got the button. Which button do I push? Here we go. So according to Ed Code and according to Prop 13, we all know, because Measure C was a Prop 39 type bond, we need a Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. It was formed in 2010. Oh, I've been on it ever since. There are certain mandated peoples that need to be represented, senior citizens, taxpayers, what have you. All those have been met. We meet once a quarter. We have our reports, notes, minutes, what have you, posted on the website. Thanks to Melanie, we have our quarterly reports. Solar production is still putting out like we had hoped. We get a project status, and the most important part is we get updates on financials, which is what this is all about. This is
the latest fiscal year. So it's not anything to do with 2021. It ended in 2020. The auditors gave us a clean report. We used the same auditors that the district itself uses. And we get our reports from them after you guys get your reports from them. So we're late. Our modernization projects are still going on. Nothing has changed there. Revenues, here's the important part. The bond was for 350 million. We've gotten 5.3 million in interest. I wish I could get 5.3 million in interest. PG&E, because of the solar projects, we got decent rebates. That was a one-time funding only that occurred early on in the solar project. So it all added up to 356 million and change. The expenditures as of June 30, 2020, you can see them up there. It says the remaining unallocated is $80,259. Those of us on the committee were very happy with that. We could see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it wasn't a train coming for us. That 80,000 is wrong. As of June 30, that 80,000 was spot on. We have had the fortunate circumstance of a number of projects coming in under bid. So we'll find out what the final number is at our next meeting, I hope. So right now, it looks like that 80,000 may be closer to 2 or 3 million. So the life of the committee goes on. These are all projects that have been completed. HVAC, modernization, technology. Technology is always an update. I mean, even though we've completed the projects, there's always something added on after the fact. You can't keep up with technology. If you think you can, you're wrong. You buy that laptop today and yesterday it was out of date. Middle schools, we've taken care of those. Oh, the irrigation program has been on hold from the second year of the projects simply because way too expensive. And now that we have all artificial turf on all the football fields, and we're going to more water-friendly landscaping, we don't need the water project, which is, it's a good thing. It saved us $1.3 million. Security is ongoing. In fact, security is overlapping into Measure J. Our general program, just ongoing costs. One thing I will mention is that because most of the project management was done in-house, the cost of doing the project management was significantly reduced. Under Measure A, we had an outside firm come in to do the project management. It cost us almost 14% of the bond. 14% of $90 million is a big chunk of change. Under the 2010 Measure C, we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 4%. That's a huge savings for the district. That's a huge savings for the kids, allowing us to get more projects done with the same amount of money. We're not going. Is that the last one? That's the last one. Cool. So what we have to look forward to is final numbers on outstanding funds, and then that may or may not come back in the next annual report, depending upon what fiscal year those funds get expended in. And I hope it gets expended in this fiscal year so we can wrap this up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ferrante. Are there any questions from the board? All right, thank you. Thank you very much for all of your volunteer work on that oversight committee and your leadership. We can see that the school district and our students have benefited greatly in so many ways from our Measure C funds and from the volunteer work of our committee overseeing it all. All right, so that takes us to our next report, which I believe is also Mr. Ferrante. Item 11.3, annual report by the 2018 Measure J Citizens Bond Oversight Committee.
I don't understand how this works. When the vote comes up, I keep saying no to chair, yet here I am. So I've been on bond committees since the late 90s. This is the first time we've had a subcommittee that wanted to put together the annual report. I did not author this report. There was a lot of controversy among committee members about this report. So we'll just move forward here. Obviously, not a lot has been done with.
Sorry, the slides that are showing are the previous year report. There were two
Yeah,
attachments to
that's-
this item. Would you like to just move forward to the
Yeah, I
current year?
want the current report.
So it'll be the second slide presentation that's attached to that agenda item.
That's what I mentioned.
Is the 2018 Measure J annual report for 1920. Yeah, it won't look like slides. More like a Word document. So as Mr. Ferrante said, this is very different. We don't usually see the annual report in this format and it's not normally by a subcommittee. While they're pulling it up, Mr. Ferrante, can you explain? So it was written by a subcommittee and then was it voted on by the whole committee?
Kind of, sort of, yeah. There was lots of
Kind of.
back and forth, and finally everybody just said, forget it, just move forward, get
So,
it done.
so was it on the agenda of the committee to approve this report after it was written?
No,
Okay.
no, it was done with everybody participating in an email type committee meeting, which was, from what we were told, that is allowed. That's not a violation of the Brown Act.
Okay, so there was no formal vote by the committee,
Correct.
by the committee as a whole. Okay, thank you.
So I can't read that, but I can read this. The summary states that the district has not completed a needs assessment of facility shortcomings and modernization opportunities. The district has not approved specific project list, and the district has not published a priority list to guide funding. While all of these statements are true, they are horribly misleading. Horribly misleading. I was involved with the LPA project for over a year. There was major effort put in by LPA and by Mount Diablo Unified. Projects were identified. We came up with $1.5 billion in projects to be done. These three statements are horribly misleading. They make no reference to that, none whatsoever. There's a lot of work to be done to get those prioritized. There's a lot of work to be done to get what was presented to be verified. That process is ongoing. On top of that, there were issues at M&O with people being gone for medical reasons. And of course, we had this wonderful pandemic, which really kind of sort of messed things up. So faulting the district, bad move. Really and truly bad move. Again, we're under the same constructs with Prop 39, that Measure C is, in that we have to have the same type of representations. We still meet quarterly. We have district representation meeting with us. Thank you, Melanie. The district has sold $20 million in bonds. The funds expended were primarily to cover the cost of the bond issuance. If we go back to 2002 Measure C, there was a lot of argument about that being a valid expenditure. We got bond counsel to come and give a presentation and say, yes, that is a valid expense. The district does not have to put money out of pocket to sell bonds. We have continued with that. Otherwise, we're not doing any bonds. It's just not going to happen. Going on to the findings, the committee has never been given a list of specific projects on which bond money will be spent. While that is true, again, it is misleading because, again, the district is still trying to put together a comprehensive list of what is to be done. Finding fault with that is misleading in the statement that they haven't done anything, which is what this strongly implies. I know Melanie and Richard put in a Herculean effort. LPA put in a lot of work. Some of us who are not employees of the district put in a lot of work. And we're hoping that by next quarterly meeting, we may actually start moving forward and get projects that Measure J can indeed work on. The primary focus given to the voters was that we would be focusing on security. In other words, fencing in a lot of our campuses to make them safe and secure, and boosting our telecommunications capability, technology, lots and lots of technology. As it says, should be noted, the district has undergone major personnel changes at high level, and the pandemic presents series of challenges, not to the district's ability to meet its education and facilities management mission, but it just presents challenges, period. So that is our report with my commentary, which I'm sure will not be appreciated when it's found out. But since they voted me chair, they get to put up with it. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ferrante. Are there any questions from the board?
I would just like to thank you for clarifying, because I thought we had started prioritizing exactly what you said: security, fences, technology, and then the next step was build more affectionate drop-off for parents, the things that parents had wanted in all the meetings we had at all the school sites. So I'm new to your committee. I don't know every reg from 39, but I didn't know if are we supposed to prioritize every year. But I thought, well, in November 2018, we had prioritized. So,
And LPA came through and did their thing, and everything got changed. And it got changed to such an extent that we went from a few to 1.5 billion, and that is mind-boggling. The amount of effort you have to put in to go through that much and that many projects is not a simple task. And we've got good people on board to do that, but time is not what we need it to be. Time is short. And I keep telling Melanie, what's the problem? You got 24 hours in a day.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrante. When I looked at the recent reports from both Measure C and Measure J from the various meetings, I did see that on the Measure C reports, we have finished projects at school sites over the last year and 2 years. Fencing, security fencing, many of the things that you mentioned are priorities for Measure J. My understanding all along was that because we ended up with additional funding in Measure J, because projects were coming in under, thank you. I was looking for the words for that. Projects costed less than we expected, et cetera. After Measure J passed, we didn't need to start spending that money right away because we first wanted to spend down all of Measure C. So we're actually being more responsible with taxpayer dollars, not less. So
And I have
that's where
to
I
say-
question the wording here. The concern is that it's the money's not being spent, but then there's words in here about not managing the bond responsibly.
Yeah,
And I
no,
think
that's
does
just
imply
misleading.
it is misleading.
To put it nicely, it's misleading.
Yes, okay.
And were I not in a public forum, there would be other adjectives thrown in. This is the first time since, when did I join Measure A? 94? 90? This is the first time that I have seen projects come in this much under budget. I think it's great, because now we've got these funds coming back that we thought were committed. We can now move forward and do more things. And yes, Ms. Khan, we need to get the Measure C program to a point where there is only $80,000 left. And then we can move on with the Measure J expenditures.
Exactly. Great. Thank you very much. It's very good news for all of us that these projects are being completed under budget and they're being done with our Measure C funds. And eventually we'll get to the Measure J funds as well. It just gives us more funds to accomplish the many projects that we want to
Well,
do.
it's more things we can do with Measure J because Measure C was able to expand.
Exactly.
That's,
Thank you.
that's the good part.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ferranti. All right, that takes us to 13.0, the superintendent's report. Dr. Clark, over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, President Cound. I have a brief report tonight, but I'm also going to, at the end of it, give a COVID update. So first of all, I just want to again acknowledge our LCAP goals that all students will receive a high quality education in a safe and welcoming environment with equitable high expectations. And goal 2, high quality and culturally proficient and responsive staff will provide engaging instruction respectful of all students' background to ensure that they are college and career ready. And goal 3, parents, family, and community will be informed, engaged, and empowered as partners with MDUSD to support student learning. So again, I want to start every meeting with acknowledging our LCAP goals and then also the goals from our SIR report that we will look at learning acceleration, educational equity, and social emotional learning. And so I know at the last meeting when this was presented, there were questions for specifics and how are we going to implement those SIR report goals. And so just a couple of brief some of the ways is first of all, students' individual CAS results that they took last year, our standardized testing of third through 11th grade. Those results are now available on Homely. And so families can start accessing those. And I will be bringing a report to share with this board of what our scores looked like last year. Also, the science materials adoptions for TK through 12, that adoption is in process and we are making steady progress there. There is a draft of the State Seal of Civic Engagement. The criteria has been developed and that draft is ready to come forward. And so there's work that I know our student trustee Alok started last year and she was hoping to see that before she left, but in her honor, we are continuing to work on that. Emerging bilingual students are currently being assessed for reclassification. And so that is work that is taking place. Elementary instrumental music classes have begun. And I'm also happy to report that PSATs are being offered at all high schools. And so that is going to be taking place. However, I want to take a step back and just give an update on assessments. And so again, we talk about learning acceleration. Well, we can't accelerate learning until we know where our students are. And so throughout our organizations, assessments are beginning to take place. Diagnostic and formative assessment, the windows are open for that. And so real briefly, I want to talk about the different assessments that we're giving. So we have the ESGI assessment window. And so ESGI, that is an assessment that is for our pre-K, TK, and kindergarten students. And it's a one-on-one assessment that the teacher does with the student. Also, as we're moving up in grade levels, we have our iReady diagnostic window that is open now. And so again, iReady is a diagnostic, is an adaptive assessment designed to provide teachers with actionable insight into student needs. And so again, the student takes the assessment and the teacher is able to access a report that shows exactly where the student's strengths and weaknesses are in comparison to a particular standard. And so those are loaded and ready to go. And then as we move up to our 4th and 5th graders, we have our IABs and our FIABs. So you may be asking what IABs are. And so Our IEBs are interim assessment blocks. And so again, that's an interim assessment. And then the FIABs are our focus assessments. And again, these are, there are no more than 3 assessment targets to provide educators with a more detailed understanding of student learning. So there are typically 10 to 15 items on these focus IEBs. And so it's not a long, laborious test. It's just a quick test where teachers can then access a very accurate report and share that with parents and can really use that to start to guide their instruction. And then in grades 6 through 8, they will be using the IEBs and the FIABs. And so again, I fully understand that our educators have been really focusing on reintroducing our students to in-school instruction, really going over procedures and processes. However, we still have work to do in the areas of academic teaching and learning. And so with these baseline assessments, they're going to give us a good understanding of where our students are and then what work needs to take place going forward. These are not optional assessments. These are all assessments that students need to take. And so our principals will be working with teachers to make sure that they have the support and the technology needed in order to give these assessments and to continue to use this data to guide instruction going forward. And so again, when in my next superintendent's report, I will bring back even more specifics. I just wanted to give a general idea that these aren't just words on papers, these are actions. We do have teams who are working on these things to ensure that learning is taking place in each and every one of our classrooms. We can't talk about the beginning of school without talking about COVID, and so that's really part of what's going on here. And so I was encouraged by some data that was produced by the county. And so as of today, the county has a dashboard where they're keeping track of cases and vaccination rates and things of that nature. And so as of today, there are 2,910 active COVID cases in Contra Costa County. That may seem like a lot, but for a county as expansive as Contra Costa County and really reaching the Far East County all the way out to West County, so everywhere from Discovery Bay all the way out to Richmond, that encompasses the county. So again, 2,900 cases are active. There's 186 individuals who are hospitalized right now for COVID. That 2,910, that 2,910 cases, that's down over the last 2 weeks by 36.8%. So I think that's encouraging. And those those individuals that are hospitalized, that number is down 11%. So again, I mean, any cases is concerning, but I did want to, let the board know of what the county is producing. On that same page, the Contra Costa County vaccination rate these aren't individuals who are fully vaccinated, but these are individuals who are fully vaccinated and have had at least one shot. That number is at 84%. And so I think that's something to be encouraged by. I've shared before that our staff rate is right around 94% with all employee groups. And so again, as we get closer and closer to when we have to mandate all employees be vaccinated or commit to weekly testing, I think working from that 94% number is a good place to start, and we are pleased with those numbers. We are producing our active cases, but with both students and staff. We are posting that information on our website, and I know that some folks are confused with what we post and why we post what we post. So again, and this is located on our website along with the spreadsheet, but an active case indicates that a student or staff member participating in on-campus instruction has tested positive for COVID-19 infection. Once the case is clear to return after individual 10-day quarantine, it is removed from the dashboard count. So that's why you don't see a cumulative number, you just see an active number. And if someone contracts COVID and tests positive for it, but they haven't been on the school site, then they are not going to show up in our numbers. So whether that's a staff member or a student, it just helps to kind of share that information out there. And as of today, our dashboard listed 3 staff members who are active with COVID and 26 students who are active with COVID. So again, when you look at our numbers, approximately 28,000 or so students and close to 4,000 staff members, to have a combined 31 cases, I think is pretty remarkable. What that tells me is that our mitigation efforts are being effective. Wearing the mask, distancing when possible, ventilation, hand sanitizing, testing, quarantining. I know that quarantine, causes a lot of, stress and anxiety for people. And I know there was an article in the paper over the weekend about, Bay Area families being upset because they feel their kids are being, sent home from school. There's a reason for that. And I get it. I empathize, for those families who are further impacted by this, but the quarantining, along with all the other measures, is working from what our data is telling us. So again, we are very encouraged by that. Of course, we don't want anyone to have any active, any positive cases, but in reality, it is something that is clearly happening. Last Thursday, Friday, we had extracurricular activities guidance was finally released from the state of California, and I have a statement here that I could read, but I'm gonna spare everyone. But essentially, what it says is basically all indoor participants need to wear masks, and unless there's a danger of them choking. So, like for example, our musical students, they have special masks that they need to wear that allows them to breathe. But clearly, sports like wrestling, swimming, competitive cheerleading, gymnastics. We don't have gymnastics, but competitive cheerleading is the next closest thing. They are not required to wear masks because there's a danger there of choking. And probably the most, the biggest part of that guidance is that all athletes need to participate in the testing program. Again, what makes all of this confusing is hours after the CDPH guidance was released, our own county released similar guidance for extracurricular activities. And the difference is in their guidance, they're recommending that vaccinated individuals don't have to participate in the weekly testing. So again, I think that's something that we're going to have to work through. And it's just a challenge. I want to talk about our testing. We're as of this week, we're still currently operating 14 testing sites. So we're providing testing every day of the week. We have them at elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools. We try to have them geographically located throughout the district. And we are doing the high quality testing. We're not doing the rapid testing. We're doing the ones where there's a oral swab or a nasal swab and it's sent off to the lab to get diagnosed. Not that rapid testing isn't effective and isn't useful in certain situations, but as of now, those tests are unavailable. The supply level just is not there for the amount of testing that we need to do. Last week, we held several listening sessions with our administrators to get feedback on how the testing programs are going. Although we contract with a group who comes out and does our testing, we have nurses and we have someone there to kind of check people in. We're still staffing those testing events, and it does take staff, pull staff considerably away from what they're doing. All of our principals are staying after school. supervising this. We have other employees who are on timesheets who are being paid there, but there's concerns. There's concerns if sick individuals show up to be tested. Our testing tends to be more, there's a quicker turnaround and it's more available than the county and state testing, and also from many individuals' own primary care physicians. And so therefore we've had tremendous turnout from our at our testing sites. And so of course there have been individuals who've been frustrated with having to wait, an hour to be tested or wait, 2 days or so for their results. I've gone through the testing 2 or 3 times myself just to test it out. I've had a very smooth time every time. I tend to tuck my ID badge in my shirt so they don't know that I'm the superintendent. I want to just kind of blend in with the crowd. Sometimes that's hard to do, but I don't think the lab really knows who I am. And so I'm getting my test results back, in approximately 30 hours, which I think is pretty great. However, with the high demand, I also have to say that, who we have sort of running this program is not in their job description. It's not in their responsibilities. And so we have one of our offices is taken over the organization of this, and it's taken a considerable amount of time. And so, I want to acknowledge that in these times of, in these tough times, we have individuals throughout the district who are willing to step up and who are stepping up. And so I want to acknowledge that. But during our listening sessions, we just heard time after time where we have individuals wandering on the campus while students are still there. We have individuals showing up to get in line early. We have individuals who are showing up sick, and and so it's causing some disruption. So starting the week of the 13th, we are going to test only at high schools, Riverview Middle School and Willow Creek, but also we are going to be opening up Saturday testing. So that way we don't have to disrupt school. Parents can bring their kids. They don't have to rush there right after work to try to get to a place before it closes. So we're going to offer Saturday testing, and included in the Saturday testing, we'll have drive-through testing where individuals can stay in their cars. So we confirmed that contract today, and so we will be starting that starting next week. So again, with the with the contact tracing, with the mask wearing, with the hand sanitizing, the testing that we're doing, we're doing the best we can to keep everyone safe and to keep in-person instruction happening in the Mount Diablo Unified School District. So I know that was an earful, but I will submit this written report to my assistant, and they will be posted so individuals can look at them if they've missed something. But that's my report, and I have any questions from the board, I'd be willing to entertain.
Thank you very much, Dr. Clark. Trustees, any questions? Comments? Trustee Nzeri?
Back to the dashboard. Can you explain better so that parents can understand, including myself, how I understand, and it seems like most people understand it's not a running total, it's active cases at this time, but how are schools reporting it, or how often are they reporting it? Because in many cases, based on the email notifications people get in not over 10 days, but in a short amount of time, it's not reflected in the dashboard.
So again, these are active cases, and these are folks who are active while on site. When we do our contact tracing, all of our contact tracing goes through county health. And remember, I believe at the last meeting, I informed the board that we were expanding our communications. So we were doing much more communications than need be. So if you're a parent, you're going to not only receive communication that there was a possible exposure in the school or in the area that your student is, but also if there's a class that's had an exposure, then that entire class, not just the close contacts are going to get notified, but the entire class is going to get notified. So then if your daughter's in middle school, so then if you have someone who's attending 6 different classes, there's going to be 6 different reports that go out to all those classes. So, so again, all of our active cases are run through county public health. They can see the active cases from the testing. We do rely on parents, you know, to share with us whether or not their kids are positive at certain times, if they're giving tests or getting tests outside of our area. But that cross-checking and referencing is taking place between our district staff and also Contra Costa County Health Services. So I don't know if I answered your question, but we over communicate. So we should only really be communicating with people who are close contacts, but we heard parents who said that they wanted more. We had staff who wanted more. So we're over communicating every time there's an active case on campus.
And I think that everyone appreciates that, like that the Department of Public Health, the County Department of Public Health, the State Department of Public Health, CDC gives us like a baseline, and there's nothing that says we can't do more. And so I, the parent, appreciate that we're, at least in this case, doing more. That's never the wrong choice. Obviously.
But it does cause anxiety.
It does, but like it's also empowering. And so, because I'm like, I've gotten 4 in 2 days, but at least I know what there is to know. And we can behave accordingly. That's, I think, it keeps everyone safe. And as you mentioned earlier, the conflicting guidance between California Department of Public Health and Contra Costa Public Health. That's going to be confusing to everybody. And who do we go by? As soon as the county or the state, I don't know, do we go by the most restriction, whatever. But we can do more. And I think the majority of our community appreciates going the distance as opposed to the leniency. And so it's okay. Let's keep doing that. Do the most that we can. Our kids deserve the most and not the least.
And I mean, I just need to say, like, this is a challenging time. There's no playbook to kind of refer to when dealing with this. You know, we have a lot of people doing things that they're not used to doing, right? I mean, you know, I'm looking at numbers and health guidance and things like that. It's not what I was necessarily trained to do, but you know, but I'm doing it. We have, you know, our human resources department is working on contact tracing every day. I mean, that's what they're doing. Our numbers, our management and human resources, they're in communication with county health every day. And it's just a challenging, difficult situation. But we heard loud and clear that our students were safest while at school. And so we want to continue to be able to provide that, opportunity for our students to come onto our campuses and be educated.
I meant one more thing. I meant to start with thank you to all the staff because this was not in anybody's job description. They did not, no one here grew up to dream of being a contact tracer. Otherwise they would have been working at the CDC. So thank you to everybody who has to do all of this. It has to do with COVID.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Oh, go ahead, Trustee Witt.
And going even further back to the testing that not COVID, to the testing that's now available on Aries, which I've looked at for my own. How much do parents care about this?
How much should they?
Yeah, from a test from a COVID year.
Yeah, they should care about it. I mean, it's a snapshot of how their students did. I mean, if you ask any teacher, they worked extra hard last year providing instruction to all of their students, and so yeah, it was a COVID year. But if you're someone who is concerned with standardized testing, it's one measurement, right? So I don't think that you need to, you know, throw a party for your kid if they did great, or I don't think you need to ship them off if they didn't do great, right? I mean, I think it's all in perspective, and but it is an accurate snapshot of how they did last year. And I know that words such as learning loss are thrown around pretty easily, but do we honestly know that? And how do we measure that? Is it just through a standardized test? Is it through engagement? What exactly is your level of, you know, as a parent, what is it that you value in that educational experience? Because there is not just one thing, whether it's grades, scores on a test, you know, happiness, connectedness in the classroom, you know, the amount of friends you have, the extracurricular activities you participate in, all of those sort of play into that student experience and which ones do families really value over the others. But I would want to look at those you know, those test scores and see where my student you know, scored and see if there's something I should be concerned about or very proud about.
Thank you. So just for myself, I'm really excited to hear about the science curriculum adoption, that's moving forward. Really looking forward to seeing how that comes forward to the board. Also very exciting for the State Seal of Civic Engagement, because I know that that is something, as you said, that Trustee Alas was all about, and I know a number of our students are as well. There's also coming up High School Voter Education Week, September 13th, I believe. I'll find it. I'll say it in my board report later. But so this, I think that's a crucial piece of education for our students, is how they can be civically engaged and be our future leaders. So really excited to hear about that, as well as the PSATs. I know, you know, testing can be frustrating, but I also know that when PSATs are available to all students to take, that oftentimes students who didn't even think about college suddenly realize that that is a path that is open to them, and that there are scholarships available to them because of their scores on the PSATs. And taking the PSAT also generally leads to higher scores on the SAT. So I'm glad that we're providing that to all kids. So thank you for that. And then just on sports, it has been really exciting to be able to go out to football games at our high schools and cheer in the stands, and it feels almost like a normal school year, almost. So to be able to keep people safe, that you mentioned the difference between CDPH, where all students need to get tested, versus CCHS, the county, the vaccinated athletes would not need to get tested. So that sounds to me like we now need to make that decision at a local level, because in both cases, they're just guidance. There's not an actual mandate coming from either level. But I like the idea of, in a way, of vaccinated students not being required to test, because that could be an incentive for students to go ahead and get vaccinated now. I mean, there's already an incentive that if you're vaccinated, you're less likely to have to quarantine and miss your next game. But the lack of needing to test could be an additional incentive there. So.
Yeah, so again, I mean, you know, we just shared this when our athletic directors had this information, you know, very recently. We were able to kind of start talking to them about it yesterday, but we're really going to, you know, collaborate with them to, you know, to find out like what is the best thing. I mean, our athletes have been, they have been, you know, on campus. They've been, you know, practicing, competing, you know, for the last 18 months. They never stopped throughout COVID. So they're a pretty compliant group when it comes to following the protocols and procedures that are out there. So again, we're going to continue to you know, talk about this. I do have a meeting tomorrow with all the superintendents in the county, and this will be one of our topics of discussion.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. All right, I think that's it then for our superintendent's report.
It is just one thing I wanted to just say about the agenda.
Yes, I think we have the same idea.
Yeah,
Shall we reorder the agenda for the
yeah.
people who've been sitting here for a very long time
I'm sure
waiting
they
for
don't
item
wanna stay here.
17.7?
Stay here all night with us.
Yes.
They're not used to
All right.
camping out till 11 o'clock, but you know.
All right. So I'm hearing a call for moving item 17.7 to next on the agenda. And do I see agreement from the board? Yes, I do. Okay. All right. Great. So we are going to move straight over to item 17.7, determination to adopt or reject the mediated tentative agreement between Mount Diablo Unified School District and the Mount Diablo School Psychologists Association, dated January 23rd, 2020. And we do have speakers on this topic. Dr. Clark, did you want to present
No, I was
first?
gonna, Dr. Scudero, would you like to present first? Would you like to, yeah, let's have, Dr. Scudero will present and then we'll hear the speakers and then we'll put it in the hands of the board.
All right, sounds good.
Is that mic on? No.
Let me try one last time. The staff recommends the board reject the mediated tentative agreement between MDUSD and the Mount Diablo School Psychologists Association dated January 23rd, 2020. And that's it unless you have any questions for me. I know you can have a lot of time.
All right. Any questions at this time? Not yet. All right, thank you very much. Okay, so we have a number of comment cards. Let's start with Carrie Buchek and then Marissa Engelman.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Clark. My name is Carrie Buchek, and I'm speaking on behalf of MUTSFA, representing school psychologists, behavioral health specialists, and our SEEK leaders from the Social Emotional Educational Collaboratives. These are our district's mental health providers. I have been serving students here since 2005, and I was formerly a school psychologist. I'm currently a behavioral health specialist. And this is the first time that I am facing you, speaking to the board with my very real concerns for the effect of the lack of services for our students that is directly related to how our MUTSFA unit is being currently treated through the bargaining process. And I am very concerned by for the impact of our students' welfare and safety. Due to the shortage of school psychologists and behavioral health specialists, we have many impacted mental health programs. At our SEEK programs, my experience is every year a BHS leaves and is not replaced. We do not have enough BHS to match the teacher caseloads. This means that students cannot be referred and placed at SEEK programs, and there is a wait list for placements based on what their assessors are saying they need to be served appropriately. This shortage also means that the school psychologist counseling clinic has started the year full for the first time ever, and they are not taking referrals, leaving our school sites without options for counseling. The school sites are also without options to refer because all of the local community clinics, including children's mental health, are impacted and have very long wait lists and are in fact calling us to refer the students back to the schools. This shortage also means that the sites like Riverview Middle School and Olympic High School already have long wait lists to assess and provide critical therapeutic services to the general education students coming out of this distance learning year, where we are seeing large number of students reporting increased depression and suicidal behaviors. This shortage also means students and their teachers currently in our SEEK programs cannot access the BHS when they need one, even though their IEP says that they should have access throughout their school day. This shortage also means that there are no psychologists assigned to schools, some of our most vulnerable sites, to be able to support the development of behavior plans and help with student safety. Understaffing not only puts our students at great risk of harm when we cannot adequately address their mental health needs, understaffing also burns out our MUTSFA members and our teachers and our SEAs with the daily and constant exposure to secondary trauma and crisis situations. Am I allowed to turn this off?
Okay, I think we got it turned off.
Thank you. When we are more reactive than proactive, we are stretched too thin to cover all of the shortages within the district. I want to just give you a quick number. When I was hired in 2009 with the original group of behavioral health specialists, when the job was originally created in the district, there were 23 of us for 2 programs. Now there are about 29 for 7 programs. And we bill Medi-Cal every minute of our day to recruit money for the district to pay for ourselves. So this month, this doesn't add up. We are down to bare bones staffing. And when we burn out, we place our students at greater risk of not being able to make the wisest decisions because fatigue really hurts us in the moment. And as we take more absences to take care of ourselves, so do our teachers. And then students again are faced with no staffing at their sites. We ask, because of this, that priority be given to staff retention. BHS are difficult to recruit and hire because we have dual licenses and credentials. If contract issues cannot be resolved, we predict we will continue to lose highly qualified staff and services to students will continue to decompensate and become utterly inadequate. Please do not wait until there are unspeakable consequences to our student safety and mental health. Please act now. Thank you.
Okay, so just to clarify, we do have a time limit on our speakers. So it's a 3-minute timer that will go on with the lights right there. So when it gets to red, your time is up. Okay, so this is Marissa Engelman, followed by Walker Durf.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Marissa Engelman, and I am a licensed clinical social worker and a behavioral health specialist at Alliance. I would like to speak on behalf of MEDS members, school psychologists, behavioral health specialists, and SEEK leaders. As a BHS, having worked in the district for 4 years, I want to express my deep concern for the lack of support that our students in special education are receiving as a result of our unit's vacancies. Since last spring, we have lost over 25% of our members, causing a ripple effect across special education. There are not enough BHS to staff our SEEK programs. Our SEEK leaders are being spread thin and are unable to keep up with the supporting demands of our most needed sites. Some school sites are without school psychologists, and our counseling clinic is already at capacity and unable to accept more students. As previously mentioned, Contra Costa County Children's Mental Health is also at capacity and referring students back to us. At a time when we are seeing increased symptoms of depression, suicidal ideation, and increased aggression and acting out behaviors in our students, it is necessary now more than ever to adequately staff our programs. Without proper staffing, students will go unseen and unsupported. As this board made clear earlier in this evening's meeting, in its adoption of Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, I ask that the district recognize the work of the trained mental health professionals of the MEDS bargaining unit. We are the folks who have done the work every single day to keep our most vulnerable students safe. Schools have the potential to function as a hub of the community. Showing your support and standing in solidarity with the MEDS members will let our community know that MDUSD is invested in the mental health and well-being of our most vulnerable students and families.
Thank you. Walker Durf, followed by Kimberly Keith.
Good evening, and thank you to members of the board for this opportunity to speak to you. Thank you to Virginia Clark and Madam Chair. I'm Walker Durf, school psychologist. It's my 5th year in the school district. I work at Oak Grove Middle School. I love my school. I love my job. It's a really hard job. We do evening and weekend work like y'all, but we do love our role. These are tough times for everyone. I listened into your last board meeting, which I think went to past 10 o'clock, and I didn't have to participate in the 2 closed sessions. So I realized that this is a very challenging time for the board and for staff as well, and we are staff too. So I feel like we're in this together, and we should work towards a solution where each side gets something. I'll make it short and sweet. I respectfully request that a school board member or several of the school board members pull item 17.7 and carry it over to a future board agenda and request staff to double check and represent their financial math regarding the estimated cost of a 1.5% raise retroactive to 2018 for about 40 psychologists. When we're fully staffed between psychologists and behavioral health specialists, about 70 to 74 staff. I'm the secretary of of our bargaining unit. So that's the numbers we're talking about. So about 40 people would qualify for the retroactive portion of this raise. Of course, there would be ongoing impacts, 1.5% raise for the other members who have joined our staff since 2018. The Mount Diablo Unified School District managers have estimated and formally submitted to the school board and the public that a retroactive 1.5% raise for the 2018 to 21 school year for about 40 psychologists and behaviorists would cost the district $8.5 million. I also serve on the district's budget advisory committee, so I fell out of my chair when I read your board agenda because I know that number is just way off. And I've checked with the senior leadership who worked with this district for many years, know all of our members. So from our knowledge of our own membership and salary schedules, we believe that your staff cost estimate overstates the true cost of implementing the tentative agreement. We estimate that one-time cost to the district for a 1.5 raise for about 40 members who would be eligible for the retroactive, plus the ongoing members who joined since 2018, will cost about $170,000 total, not $8.5 million. Seeing that my time is coming up, I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to address the board. I know that we all make mistakes, errors happen. Your board agenda notes a clerical mistake in not bringing this contract that you reviewed last year. So I just ask that we own our mistakes, that we make amends, and we work towards a positive solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kimberly Keith, followed by Allison Page. Yes. Keith is not here. All right, so we have Allison Page.
Good evening. Good evening, Dr. Clark, members of the board, staff, Dr. Hughes. I know that I can speak on all of our behalf by thanking you for moving this agenda item. Appreciate it very much. Dr. Clark, usually it is my job to bring up uncomfortable and very sensitive things that no one else wants to talk about. I appreciate that you did that tonight. I would like you, all of you, to consider what it would be like to have a suicidal student on campus without a school psychologist that day. I'll bet that you would wish that we were there. Usually it comes up through in high school English essay, and they come scurrying and looking for it. But I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about the Preschool Assessment Center. We see lots of 3-year-olds who don't talk or don't talk much. How many in our community of 3-year-olds are not developing normally? We write about 350 individual education plans per year. And of those 350 plans, almost 200 of them have full psychological evaluation. I like to be part of a community that shows care and consideration and protection for our vulnerable members. In previous board meetings, I have heard you express similar sentiments, so I am vexed. You are now leading a community that is hemorrhaging mental health staff during a mental health crisis. We're hemorrhaging staff in part because we're one of the most poorly compensated groups in the area, and because we don't have a contract, and it's not a secret that we don't. Your staff, with your consultation, following the protocol for fair bargaining, signed a modest tentative agreement almost 2 years ago. The financial reason for rejecting the TA is fiction. It will cost more to hire psychologists from the private sector and to fund the legal challenges for unfulfilled IEP services and incompleted assessments than it will to approve our TA.
So please come to the preschool assessment center sometime. We're very proud of it. We love to show it to you. And we urge you to vote to approve our tentative agreement. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for coming out today and for giving your public comment. That concludes the public comment for this item. I will now open it to board discussion.
I appreciate the comment that was made about we all make mistakes and we have to own them. And I guess a mistake we unwittingly made is when we had to deny the tentative agreement with Medea, because the county had pretty much told us they weren't going to approve our budget if we approved that. We assumed that everybody would know that meant we were not going to approve any tentative agreements for that year, and we haven't. And I think I can speak for the whole board when I say we value all of our staff. We would like all of our staff to be compensated well, but we try to treat all of our bargaining units the same. And for me personally, to approve this TA when we approve no other ones, I can't do that. But I can say we're currently in the place of negotiating and bargaining going forward. And any concerns that you have that weren't addressed, you can address that in the further negotiations.
Thank you, Vice President Mason. Other comments on the board? Trustee Anzavia.
Can Dr. Scudero come back?
Dr. Scudero, there are some questions.
It's one you would expect. Can you explain the numbers?
Sure, the 8.5 million.
Versus that.
Right, so
180.
that is the number we got from the business office for the 1.5% for the 3 years, 2018 to 2021. Not just for MUDSPA, but also for those units who had Me-Too agreements that covered that period of time. It also came into play looking at the reduction of 200 days to 190, what that was in terms of percentage raise, in terms of the daily rate, and then mapped out to the Me-Too agreement. The business office told us that total was 8.5 million.
Any trustees, further questions or comments? I'm not hearing you. Go ahead.
I don't know. I'm like, I have to get my comments in my head.
Go ahead.
It's not a question, so don't worry. Yeah. I was about to say a cuss word, but I guess I shouldn't because my mom would be embarrassed. It's a really crappy situation. Like so I said crappy instead of the other. It's very messy and it's very painful. And I think it's very painful for us up here. I assume it's painful for the staff. And I know absolutely it's painful for you and it's painful for our students. And so what our struggle is, during the organizational, your remarks, you mentioned like do the moral thing or the right thing. And that's what I've struggled with over these last couple of weeks when we know this would be brought to us. And what is the moral thing to do or what is the responsible thing to do? And to Trustee Mason's point, I'm weighing the morality of not that this board didn't approve the TA of Medea, and it should have at the same time not like officially not approved anybody that that's how it was going to be, and it didn't. And so, and the equitable thing in my mind is that we can't approve that TA. But the moral part of my mind says like we have this whole bargaining unit that is just like every other that is so essential to the well-being of our whole entire community, not just our students. And not speaking in hyperbole, but what if, as we said, a student was lost? That would impact our whole community, not just our school community. And so that's the difficulty of the situation. It wasn't that eloquent, which I always say, that's why I write my words. I didn't, because there was so much for us to learn today as well, and to learn from all of you. But yeah, this is a really crappy situation. To the numbers though, or to the 8.5 versus 180. So like the 8.5 includes the 1.5% increase. And I believe that the 180 is the 10 days back pay of 1819.
So sorry, but just to be clear, if we were just working with MUDSPA, just them, it would be the 170, 180 number, somewhere around there. However, because we have the Me Too agreements with all of our other units, the 8.5 million is what it would cost to give the entire district, all of our bargaining members, a 1.5% raise retroactively back to when this agreement was signed, and the equivalent of a 10-day reduced work year. So again, I 100% trust the numbers of the 170 to 180. I understand that. If we were only working with MUDSPA, then that would be one thing. However, when we look at our district liability, we have to take into account the Me Too clauses that would kick in if this were approved. So that's where the number came from. So nobody lied, nobody made up these numbers or anything. It's just, again, painting the whole big picture. It's unfortunate. Well, we understand it, and I don't know what else to say about that. But that is where that number comes from.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. So I'm sorry, public comment period is over. This is the time for us to debate about our decision. Thank you. That's just how the meeting works. So in my mind, there are two pieces. One is what I'm hearing and what I'm just aware of course, as a parent in this district, is that there is urgency right now to fill the vacancies that we have in these crucial positions in our district, to make sure to serve our students and their crucial mental health needs in the middle of a mental health crisis. I think we all agree on that. The question is how to get there. This tentative agreement from 2020, as Trustee Mason described, we had all assumed was officially voted down at the same time as Medea and all of the others under the circumstances that existed at that time. And to go back and change it now is the difficulty. So what I would recommend is that in order to move forward, that we do deny this particular piece of paper in front of us tonight, but we provide direction to the staff that we feel the urgency to resolve these matters, and that we expect that the negotiation process needs to move forward and needs to move forward effectively to meet the needs of our students as soon as possible. Any agreement or disagreement responses?
I was just going to make a motion that we reject the mediated tentative agreement between Mount Diablo Unified School District and the Mount Diablo School Psychologists Association that was dated January 23rd, 2020.
But it's president on
So there's a motion on the table. Is there a second? Okay, motion by Vice President Mason, second by Trustee Mayo. Any further discussion? Trustee Manzella?
Would that motion need to include your the direction that we give? The caveat, or do you know what I'm trying to say? Also, can you clarify or give greater explanation as to what that means, like giving direction? I know what we've heard is this unit doesn't really trust the district and doesn't trust, I don't know that they trust or can trust the board but we can just do our best. And you can only go off of what we say or what you hear us publicly direct. But I just, I think I wonder, how can we make it more strong? If that's even
So that's a good question. I think
capability. I don't even know if that's.
normally our direction on negotiations occurs in closed session. So I would need to refer to our legal counsel as to what level of specificity we could direct at this time.
So there's been a motion and it's been seconded. We have also staff, we understand that we have been directed to negotiate and to try to reach a economical resolution to this issue with all of our bargaining members, but with must find specifically on this issue. So I believe as staff, we understand that. We will follow your directive. And there is no need to specify as to what exactly will be negotiated or what will not be negotiated. That is part of the negotiation process. At this point, I think we have more than enough instruction from the board as to how to proceed. We will do our best to do so.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alvarado. All right, any further discussion on this before we take it to a vote? I know, this is tough. All right, well, I will take it to a vote in that case. Trustee Mason,
Yes,
trustee Mayo,
reluctantly, yes.
trustee McFerrin,
Yes.
trustee Nzewi.
I'm going to say yes, but only because I trust my board members, which I know that you all have no reason to trust us yet. But for that reason, because I trust us, I'd say yes.
All right, I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. All right, so that takes us to the consent agenda, item 14.0. My details, just a minute. Moving on to the consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be approved, adopted by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. However, any item may be removed from the consent agenda upon the request of any member of the board and acted upon separately. Do we have any items requested to be pulled at this time?
I would like to pull 1416.
I'd like to pull 14.33.
Okay. So do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda except for items 1416 and 1433?
I would make a motion that we approve the consent item with the removal of 1416 and 1433.
Second.
All right, motion by trustee Mason, second by trustee Mayo. Your names are so similar, I mix them up a lot. All right, we'll take that to a vote. Trustee Mason?
Yes.
Trustee Mayo?
Yes.
Trustee McFerrin?
Yes.
Trustee Nzewi?
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, so that takes us to the two pulled items. So item be pulled is going to be 15.16.
I just wanted to make a comment because I noticed in looking at this, we're hiring a lot of special ed. I consider them special people in a whole nother realm that they do this work. It's amazing. But I noticed that there was a couple people that we hired and then they left. So I just am hoping that we're being very upfront and honest with them about what the job entails and that it's a hard job. Maybe they just got better offers somewhere else. But I just wanted to make sure that number one, we're really explaining to them the magnificent work they're doing and how it impacts people in a very positive way. And that we're providing, since there's a large number that we're hiring, that we're doing a lot of training as we can under these circumstances. So I have no problem with the list in general. I just wanted to make sure that we're letting these people know what the job is so they don't start and then leave. So having said that, I would go ahead and make a motion to approve the approval of the classified personnel.
Second.
All right, thank you very much, trustee Mason. Second, motion by trustee Mason, second by trustee Mayo. Any further discussion on this item? All right, I really appreciate all of your comments. I think we're all in agreement on everything that you just said. Okay, so I'll take that to a vote. Trustee Mason,
Yes?
trustee Mayo,
Yes.
trustee McFerrin,
Yes.
trustee Nzewi.
Yes.
I also vote yes, motion passes 5-0. That moves us to item 15.33. Trustee Mayo.
Second.
Yeah, when it's pulled, then it goes to 15, so.
Okay.
Same item.
So I pulled this item because I'm advising everyone that I'm voting no on this particular item. I would recommend, and staff has received a communication from me regarding some of my concerns about the contract and the requirements. I trust that staff will follow through as they're dealing with this contractor, and that the process will go through appropriately. But I still need to abide by my concern and vote no at this particular time. I would encourage the rest of you to make your consideration based on your previous opinions and evaluation of the docket as presented. Basically, the contract is too far down the road. It'll cause too many legal problems to pull it probably at this point in time. And then there are some matters in the contract itself. So I don't think we need to go into the detail. Unless people have other questions.
It looks like we have staff prepared to answer questions if there are any that you would like to ask in
Well,
public.
Considering the interesting comments and the vagueness of them, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. We approve the award for the installation of HVAC duct smoke detector sensors at Northgate High School.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by trustee Mason, second by trustee Nzewi. Any further discussion? We have a staff comment in response to trustee Ram. All right, okay, just checking.
It's like pulling teeth.
There we go. All right, we will put this to a vote. Oh, okay, so taking this to a vote, trustee Mason,
Yes.
trustee Nzewi,
Yes.
trustee McFerrin,
Yes.
trustee Mayo.
No.
All right, I also vote yes. Motion passes 4-1. Thank you very much.
I apologize.
Okay. There we go. All right, so that is all of our consent items, and this moves us to our business items of the evening. Item 17.1, review revisions to Title I Board Policy and Administrative Regulations 6020. Dr. Clark.
If you have any questions, Ms. Sachs is here to answer any of your questions if you have questions.
Okay. Trustees, do you have any questions on this item? Just for the public to understand that this has to do with parent involvement.
It does.
Do you want
and
to say a
actu-
few words about how you're getting input? on this?
Absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity. So as we reviewed the board policy and administrative regulations, it became apparent that we needed a couple different sets of eyes on it. So we're bringing it forward here for information as well as sharing it with the different advisory groups. So it was shared last night with our CAC group, which is our Community Advisory Committee. We're going to be presenting and talking about it at our Parent Advisory Committee, and then also our District English Learner Advisory Committee. And really what this is we just want to make sure that we have some feedback on whether or not there's anything we've missed on it. This is, again, one of those boilerplate language board policies and ARs from the California School Boards Association, but it is important that we go out and we get folks' feedback. And I just want to recognize that Don Edwards has created a survey by which folks can either send information to us or it can be collected that way in the event that they'd like time to process the documents.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I did appreciate that that in the new version, there's a lot of discussion about really us taking a look at the data of what parents are involved and what kind of groups. Are we doing enough outreach in different languages and in all the different communities to make sure that all parents really have a voice in the district? So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I just wanted to emphasize the part of making sure that we're training the parents. Sometimes I don't think the parents realize the power they have if they're there at the table helping form the decision. So I think the training is a big piece of that, but it is, as I recall, mentioned in there.
Yes, for sure. I think making sure that there's a diverse group of voices at the decision-making tables, at the various committees and opportunities, site councils throughout our district is going to ensure that we make the best decisions we can in the district. So much appreciated. Thank you. Okay, so that was an information item only, no motion necessary. Item 17.2, review of revisions to board policy and administrative regulations 6174, addressing the education of emerging bilingual students, English learners.
Yes, similarly, this board policy and administrative regulation has been revised in order to address changes in state and federal law. It is something that we are utilizing as an artifact for our federal program monitoring review that is happening. And I just want to recognize the work of Carmen Garces and her team in making the updates to the documents.
Trustees, any questions or comments? This is information only as well. No? Okay. Really appreciate your time and efforts on this one as well, as obviously this is a very key part of our community, and we want to make sure that all of our English learners are successful and that we're really putting the policies into place to make that happen. Thank you. All right, item 17.3, review and potential approval of certification of the district's 2020-2021 unaudited actuals financial report. Dr. Clark?
Yeah, so again, you know, we've been through this process before. You know, we start the year off with the budget, and then life happens, and then you know, we check our bank account at the end, and either things look better or things look worse. And there's a lot of factors that played into these unaudited actuals, and so we have staff here who are going to do a presentation and hopefully answer any questions that you have in this process. So I'm going to have Dr. Gonzalez and Mika why do I always get it wrong? Arbobon. I just want to acknowledge the amount of time and work that went on with Mika and her team. You know, we're talking you know, weekends, last couple of weekends, we're talking late into the evening. You know, a lot of work went into this, and it's not necessarily work. She is dependent on other people in order to get her work done. And when some of those don't happen, it really delays the process. But again, Mika and her team were very professional throughout, and we owe a great deal of gratitude for getting this done on time and done correctly. So again, Mika, thank you for that.
So thank you very much, board members. We're going to tag team this presentation this evening. So really, the unaudited actuals are about two things. First of all, it tells us what we got and what we did. And that's really what the unaudited actuals are focused on. Our plan, what we thought, and what ended up happening. So the first thing that we want to just give a tad bit of background, and this has to do with the unaudited actuals in general. It's required by the Department of Education. It is when we have entirely closed our books, which means that once, a little more, once we've closed our books, so the fiscal year ends on June 30th, and it takes us a good 2 months or so to make sure that everything has been counted, it has been properly adjusted. And so what it is it's a snapshot in time of everything that took place as of June 30th. We account for all expenses, we account for all revenue, and then we take a look at all of the reports that are combined together. So the slide that's up here right now, this takes a look at where we are with general fund revenue. And quite honestly, we did very well this last year. We reclassified many expenses into our unrestricted general fund. And we were able to do this as a result of the one-time federal and state funds that we received from COVID. So we've been trying to update the board and the public along the way with the expenditures. We will do that again later this week with some idea as to the new funding and so far what it is that we're covering. But basically, really want to let you know that in all accounts, we certainly did better this year by being able to have that one-time money to make some shifts.
So, like Dr. Gonzalez said, we reclassified many expenses from unrestricted side to one-time funds so that we have a good amount of ending fund balance in unrestricted side, which will help the future deficit spending. We have like 12 million to about 13 million deficit spending in next 3 years. So this ending fund balance will help mitigate the deficit spending.
The next slide that we're showing here talks about our contributions to restricted programs. And for the sake of clarity with the public, I just want to remind everyone that there are two different types of funds that we get. We get restricted funds, and they all have strings attached to them, whether they come from the state or they come from a grant or they come from federal programs. There are very specific rules. And the rule that we always know is you spend your restricted money before you spend your unrestricted money, because the unrestricted money is the money where you have the flexibility. You don't have the flexibility with restricted. So we all try as much as we possibly can to make sure we use our unrestricted first. So what this slide here shows is it shows the contributions that we made to restricted programs. And you can see that there was a decrease in special education. Some of that came from the impacts of COVID, as we certainly know. We had less transportation because we did not have the movement of students. We had many unfilled aides and we had vacancies in a number of positions that quite honestly we frosted for the year. For example, we had transportation roles or transportation aides, and because we knew we weren't going to be transporting students, but we were ready in case we needed to come back to school. We basically frosted those positions and said, look, we're going to keep the positions. We're just not going to fill them right now until we have the need for that work. We had a great deal of staff extra time and hourly savings that we had because we simply didn't have students on our campuses. And again, we were able to move some of our staff over to one-time funds while trying to be mindful as much as possible of our maintenance of effort with special education. The other thing that you see here is a decrease in athletics, and this is one of the budget reduction, really hard decisions that the board had to make the year before, partially with middle school, but also we know that there was a COVID impact on athletics as well. So there weren't as many games as we were used to, certainly the transportation and the referee costs that would have come along with athletics. The next slide here, again, we just want to reiterate when it comes to the fund summaries, the one-time funds certainly were very helpful. And we always wanted to make sure that when we were presenting budgets to you, that we were presenting with one-time and without one-time. And so there were notable increases in our ending fund balance, again, because of some of the reclassifications that we did.
So that was Fund 01. And for other funds, building funds, facility funds, it's just the nature of it, decreased ending fund balance. However, All the other, most of the other funds, like Eagle Peak, charter school, adult ed, food services, developer fee funds, all of those, so little increase to the ending fund balance.
So this right here, and I think we might need to move it over just a tad. Thanks, just so that we can, perfect, thank you.
Oh, so this one is showing the components of ending fund balance. When you look at the bottom of the chart, that is on the right side, it's dividing unrestricted and restricted side. But on the bottom, it shows the ending fund balance, 66 million and 23 million. And above that is showing what consists of it. So it starts with the source, revolving cash and inventory. And then we have different assignments on the unrestricted side. And in the middle is the restricted. That is some prepaid expense we paid in 2021 to take advantage of discounts that we received by paying in advance, that it is for 21-22 expenditure. And the other amount, 23 million, is the total of Title 1, 2, 3, and all the other restricted funds.
So I know that one of the numbers that you keep hearing is that we've got a healthy fund balance of 89 million. What we really need to focus on those, we need to focus on the 66 because that 23 is still restricted. And because it's restricted, it still has those strings attached. So we need to be mindful that when we're using numbers, we're looking at the 66. And when you take a look at the assignments that are there, 3 of the assignments were in the proposed, the adopted, and the 45-day budget revisions. And these are the unaudited actuals, which means these are the amounts that we were carrying over into this year. There are 3 more obligations there that are notable that we want to be able to call out. And the reason we want to call that out is because, as Dr. Clark mentioned before, and as some of you have also alluded to, we are trying to be as transparent as humanly possible with the board, with staff, and with the community. And the 3 other assignments that are there are items that we are paying out, but we want to make sure that we provide attention to. So for example, the 403B supplemental retirement plan, this is the last 3 years, like 4 years.
We still have 3 more years.
3 more years. So these are the 3 years that we have left with the PARS retirement that we had in June of 2020. And so we wanted to call that out. I know there was a question about whether this was identified in OPEB. They are 2 entirely different scenarios and they really have nothing to do with one another. So I hope that answers that piece. The LCFF supplemental, there's new legislation that came down that says that if there is carryover in LCFF supplemental, it carries over as LCFF supplemental. It can't be carried over as anything else, and it can only be spent per our plan on things that qualify for LCFF supplemental dollars. And so we want to call that out because it's not available for anything else. The last thing there that is notable and different is a vacation payout. We want to be mindful that we're sharing what the vacation payout is because these are funds that may not otherwise be used for other expenses because we have staff that are not fully utilizing vacation time on an annual basis. And so all of our bargained agreements specifically state that by a certain time, everybody needs to be paid out for those days. So we're being very mindful with all of our leaders that we need to make sure that people are properly taking those. But in the meantime, we need to call that number out to be truthful and transparent that this is about what it's costing us on an annual basis. And we certainly know last year, there were an awful lot of departments and individuals where it was impossible for them to take any time. And, you know, I'm looking at one right here next to me because I know that Mika's been working 7 days a week and into, 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning and falling asleep on their computer. And there are an awful lot of staff that have had to do that. So I just wanted to point that piece out. Next slide that we have.
So when you look at the general fund unrestricted expenditure, we had a 12 million less than estimated actually. And this is mainly like one-time funds we budgeted, but we are rather using it in 21-22. So we ended up not using it. And we have about 5 million in local funds, which belongs to school sites. They receive different kind of local funds, and the substantial amount was not spent, but we had to budget it because they need to know how much they have. So ended up not spending it.
I think it's important to note there that we do have a practice to allow our school sites in many specific budgets at their site. We allow them to carry those funds over. If it's something that's for a garden project, or it's for field trips, or it's department funds. In our mind, those were identified by the school sites. They've been fundraised. They've been whatever it is that they've had over the years, and those funds belong to them. So we make sure that we maintain those. The next slide you see there is, this is the key difference that we saw from our estimated actuals back in April, and this has to do with restricted funds. So the first thing you see there is that books and supplies came in approximately 14 million lower than we had estimated. And this is because for the last month or so, we have tried as much as possible, working with our auditor, working with other creative CBOs and others around the area, to try to move as much as we could that was allowable to one-time expenses, because it would free up one-time money for one time. So some examples, I know Mika mentioned this before, but your title programs, routine restricted maintenance, and unfortunately, those are restricted resources, which means we can't use those to pay for paper-based programs, for salaries. So while we wish we had that flexibility, we do not. The other part of the services came in approximately $9 million lower when we really took a deeper dive into this. It had to do with a lot of the contracts that had we had students on campus this past year, we would have used those services, and some of that was routine restricted maintenance as well. And then the last piece here, and this is an important one, and this is one of the frustrations that we certainly have, is that we received we received 3 components of one-time funds. We received half of ESSER 2, we received half of the AB 86 Expanded Learning Opportunities Grant, and half of the AB 86 in-person grant. But we didn't get that money until May and June. So we get it in May and June. We have to account for the fact that we didn't spend it because we just got it, and then it carries over. So that's part of what you see on the slide. Wrapping up here, I think it's important to just keep in mind some of the budget concerns that we do have moving forward, because these are things that either we know are going to happen and are going to be increasing, or they're just concerns in general. First of all, economic recovery, right? We thought 3 to 4 months ago, we were on the road to everybody's going to be back, and hey, we took masks off for 3 or 4 weeks, and now we've got Delta, and we don't know if Delta is going to invite its friends later and, you know, morph into something else. And so the economic recovery, it's something that we all need to watch because it continues to be very uncertain. The enrollment and average daily attendance, certainly our eyes are on the October CBEDS date, when we will have some pretty solid numbers to really know where we're going. And so we're being very mindful of watching for that. Cost of living adjustment and COLA rates in future years, we know that those numbers continue to be fairly low. So we're watching to see what happens with that, because that becomes a moving target during the year. Increasing health benefits, we know that they're going up every year. The question is, how much will they go up? And so we continue to be watching that. Our insurance policies, we certainly saw many of our insurance components jump considerably this year. Increasing costs of STRS and PERS. I know that we've been presenting that on a regular basis. Those rates, we've not heard about any more buy downs, so we know that those will continue to increase, and then within about 2 to 3 years, they should flatten out. The ongoing deficit spending, we do need to address that. And as Mika pointed out earlier, you know, it's really somewhere between about $10 and $12 million that we continue to spend more than we bring in every year. And then finally, the July FICMAT report that we presented at the August board meeting pointed out the fact that we are overstaffed. We have 94% of last year's budget as in unrestricted spending goes to salary and benefits. And so that's something that we do need to really take a look at over the course of this year. So with that said, we have our very last slide here, and it's just a reminder to the board and the public. I'll do this one. So the budget calendar, depending on when you want to start that year, we'll go ahead and start it back in June. So in June, we had our proposed budget, our adopted budget, that came forward. Today is September 8th. We've got our unaudited actuals, and the things that you can expect will be coming forward in the future. First interim falls middle of December. Second interim, March of next year. If we need a third interim, that would come right at the end of May. In early June, we take a look at our public budget hearings and our LCAP process. And then in late June, we would have our budget and our LCAP approved. And those two always go hand in hand. So with that, again, a huge thank you to Mika and really all the staff members who have been assisting us so much over not only in fiscal services, but our teammates from the educational services department and most certainly special education, because this last week they really had their work cut out for them with trying to assist us as much as possible with the budget. And so with that, happy to open it up to board questions.
If I may, before
Yes.
we go there, I'd like to say thank you to my staff, Nancy Chen, Matt Fielder, Shona Hayden, Frank Monahan, Didi Blankley, and Devendra. So I can't remember. And
Sandra
Wendy-
Inouye.
Sandra Inouye, Wendy Kim, and
Kimberly
Tiffany
Walker.
Jones. Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate their hard working
And Awatif Omer, who jumped in and was running reports when we needed them. It was a full court press all weekend. It was about 18-hour days all weekend.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very
Questions?
much for the presentation. Trustees, do you have questions?
I have frustrations how we walk this fine line of being transparent and having the public say, you have lots of money. What is the problem? I don't understand why you're not giving raises to everybody. So I think we just have to keep sharing, and the board has to keep letting people know. I mean, the quickest way for us to go under is start spending one-time funding on raises for people. And then we will be off the side of the cliff in a hurry. So I'm just, it's very frustrating, and I guess I'm just saying it for the public, for us, for the staff, for everybody, for you guys, to try to balance a budget with numbers that change every day, numbers that have restrictions on them, and students and staff with a lot of needs that we're trying to meet every day. So thank you for the report. It is what it is, and I appreciate all the time, because if it's driving me crazy, I can't even imagine how you guys sleep at night. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Mason. Other comments or questions? Okay, I think there was one question that just for the public might help understand how to read this. When you read the unaudited actuals report, there's two columns, right? There's the 2020, 2021 unaudited actuals, and then there's the 2021-22 budget. So the question that I received was, when the board votes to approve this unaudited actuals, are we in essence changing the budget, or is the budget still the right-hand column?
The budget on the right-hand column, 21, 22, is that what you're referring to? This is the other city budget.
Yes.
And I understand we did the 45-day budget revision. However, the SAC software doesn't recognize 45 days, so there's no way for me to put the data in the SAC software. So adopted budget is the only one that can include it in here. Did I answer your question?
So I think the question was going forward at when we see our next reports and we see the budget going forward, is it going to be the column that is currently estimated actuals, or is it going to be the column that is on this one, adopted budget?
So I think I remember we're gonna see adopted budget and then revised budget. Actual comes in one of the columns, revised budget and board approved budget. And this is something I was thinking about talking to the software company, PowerSchool, because right now, when I pull the report, pull the data from the financial system, it automatically pulls the adopted budget and the revised budget, which will be used for the approved budget. So it will have 4 columns. But so these two at this point are showing the same number.
Right.
Right.
Okay, so ongoing software questions. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Any other comments or questions, board, or is there a motion?
I would make a motion that we approve the actual audited report as presented.
The
Actuals.
unaudited actuals.
That's why I don't do numbers.
We're almost to the end of the agenda, everybody.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you, Linda.
All right, well, thank you. Motion by trustee Mason, second by trustee Mayo. Again, the motion is to approve our 2021 unaudited actuals financial report. Any further discussion? We'll take that to a vote. Trustee Mason?
Yes.
Trustee Mayo?
Yes.
Trustee McFerrin?
Yes.
Trustee Nzewi?
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much for your report. All right, item 17.4, review and potential approval of adoption of the district's 2020-2021 appropriations limit calculation, the GAN limit, resolution 2021-22-10.
Is there any questions about the GAN limit?
Trustees, are there any questions about the GAN limit? I know this is a very straightforward piece. As long as our new board members are aware. I think we're all set. Thank you very much. We need a motion on this item.
I'll move to approve resolution number 21/22-10, the district's 2021 to 22 appropriations limit calculation GAN limit.
Thank you. Motion by trustee McFerrin, second by trustee Mayo. We'll take that to a vote. Trustee McFerrin?
Yes.
Trustee Mayo?
Yes.
Trustee Mason? Yes. Trustee Nzewi?
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. All right, moving on to 17.5, review and potential approval of a contract amendment number 4 to contract between MDUSD and Robert Half International. Dr. Clark?
Again, are there any questions on this?
Is this an anticipated one-time thing? Or is this going to be something we see coming back every year?
Until we can fill those positions, but I'll let Dr. Gonzalez and Mrs. Appleby.
Arbelby, we're getting closer.
Right now, what we're doing, most specifically with technology, is we have to inventory in every hotspot. So there's about 1,500 of those. We've got to identify every Chromebook that we're taking off middle and high school campuses, making sure we understand the funding source, because if they're Title I, they can only stay in certain locations, and then redistributing those to all of our elementary schools. So it's one example of where we see that we're probably going to need temporary assistance for 2 to 2.5 months, and then the work goes away. So part of it for us is that we have a shortage right now in the benefits department. And so we need to plug that hole as quickly as we can. I know that we continue to have staff shortages in the fiscal department. As a matter of fact, since I've arrived, we've never been fully staffed. And some of those are just harder to fill positions. So if I mean, we've really exhausted some creative ways to get positions filled. When possible, we go to overtime, but sometimes if you need another body there during the workday for, 8 to 10 hours, it's really hard to do that with current staff. So while I would like to say that it's only one time, there is a chance that we're going to have to bring this back and increase this amount even more to try to make ends meet, especially with the COVID and testing and everything else that we've got going on right now.
Okay, so there's two issues. If we looked at the tech plan they brought us, I don't see how that's going to be a one-time thing that we're going to have to do all this with hotspots and Chromebooks if we're moving toward one-to-one. That seems like it's going to be something we just live with in the future. And number two, it seems like a systemic issue that we need to get to the bottom of figuring out why we can't get people in those jobs, why we can't hold the people in those jobs so we can solve it. And I don't know if we do exit interviews when people leave, but I think it's important to find out what's going on because prior to this, for years and years and years, those positions were filled. So I think we need to find out what's going on. And if it means, I mean, we're spending a lot on this contract, maybe, I don't know, just, we need to get to the bottom of what's going on over there.
If I could speak to the tech plan real quickly, what we're doing right now is we're putting devices into the hands of every middle and high schooler in the entire school district. Those devices will go out one time, and with the exception of, so-and-so drops one and breaks it. Once we get all those distributed, they're distributed. And once we redistribute what's coming in for those middle schools and high schools, that workload will be reduced significantly. But our biggest push right now is to make sure that we get all those devices into the hands of students, and it's taking somewhere between 2 and 3 days per high school or per middle school to try to get all those distributed. So I want to provide more explanation of what the context is for the situation, because we can't take everybody on our entire technology team and have them out at out at school sites trying to distribute those when we have the day in and day out of repairs that need to happen across the district for our staff.
Okay, do I hear a motion on this item?
Madam President, I move that the board approve the Fourth Amendment to the multi-year contract between Mount Diablo School District and Robert Half International Incorporated for additional $100,000 for the fiscal year 21-22.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by trustee Mayo, second by trustee McFerrin. Any further discussion? Okay, I think trustee Mason, that you make some very important points, that, exit interviews is something that sounds like it would make a lot of sense, that we find out why people are leaving, if they're in the particular ongoing roles where there are vacancies that we're trying to fill, as opposed to the situations that we know are already temporary. All right, let's take that to a vote. Trustee Mayo?
Yes.
Trustee McFerrin?
Yes.
Trustee Nzeri?
Yes.
Trustee Mason?
Yes.
Also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Okay, item 17.6, review and potential approval of the initial successor agreement proposal for MDUSD to Teamsters.
You got Dr. Fidero going to present this item.
So at the last board meeting, we brought this item for information purposes. This time, we're asking you to move to approve the successor agreement proposal from Mount Diablo Unified School District to the
Thank you very much. Any questions? All right, do we hear a motion?
Board approve the successor agreement proposal from Mount Diablo Unified School District for bargaining with the Teamsters.
We'll second that.
Motion by trustee Mayo, second by trustee Mason. Any further discussion? All right, we'll take that to a vote. Trustee Mayo?
Yes.
Trustee Mason?
Yes.
Trustee McFerrin?
Yes.
Trustee Nzeri?
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
All right, and we already handled 17.7, so that takes us to 17.8. Review and potential approval of Resolution 2122-11, reducing or discontinuing number of classified employees based on a reduction of discontinuance of a particular kind of service for the 2021-22 school year.
Which seems such an awkward thing to bring up after that last discussion. So this PKS on it is the success of the food service program in that all students in the district now can get lunch, which means that food service does not need a courier to go and pick up funds from all the different sites because there are no exchange of funds. Students pick up free lunches. That's one of the items on the PKS. The other one is a cleanup from last spring. We ask that you move to approve resolution 2122-11 to reduce the number of classified employees based on a reduction of a particular kind of service.
Thank you very much. Any questions on this item? Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 21/22-11, reducing or discontinuing the number of classified employees based on a reduction of discontinuance of a particular kind of service for the 2021-22 school year.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by trustee Mason, second by trustee McFerrin. We'll take that to a vote. Trustee Mason?
Yes.
Trustee McFerrin?
Yes.
Trustee Anzeri?
Yes.
Trustee Mayo?
Yes.
I also vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. And that is all of our business items this evening. All right, so what we have left on the agenda, we had moved board reports to the end, and then we also have future agenda items. So let's go ahead with our board reports, and then we'll do future agenda items before we adjourn. Okay, so who would like to start on board reports? Trustee McFerrin?
All right. Good evening, everyone. Like everyone else on the board, I participated in a second study session led by Nicole Anderson on August 26th. The series is titled Effective Governance with an Equity Lens. As a result of these study sessions, we may update our equity policy. This is really important work, and I'm very glad to be a part of it. In the last couple of weeks, the Budget Advisory Committee and the Community Advisory Committee had their first meetings of the new school year. The BAC met last Wednesday on Zoom. Topics for presentation and discussion included the fiscal health and risk analysis and the refinancing of bonds. Our next BAC meeting will be on September 29th at 5 o'clock on Zoom. I do want everyone to know that these meetings are open to the public, and all information about the agenda and how to attend is posted on our district website. The CAC met last night also on Zoom. Melody Royal, our new parent liaison, introduced herself to the group. We also received a report from Dr. Aguili about transportation. Additionally, we heard about efforts from the Dyslexia Task Force on finding out and supporting legislation to support students with dyslexia. We heard a very encouraging update about the Bridge program. I was especially glad to hear about how the administration and staff is supporting social emotional learning in the program. The next CAC meeting will be on October 5th. I do want to give a word of thanks and appreciation to the CAC officers, Dorothy, Natalie, Janine, and Lisa. They provide an incredibly welcoming space for parents and are extremely supportive of and invested in access and success for our students in special education. It's a really excellent group, and I appreciate being a part of it. I also want everyone to know that the 9th annual MDUSD College Fair will be on Tuesday, September 21st. It will be a virtual event. Registration for sessions opened up on September 3rd, so they should still be open now. I want to thank all of the parent volunteers who are working on this event. In past years, I've had students attend and tell me how much they enjoyed it. And so I'm very much looking forward to this event this year. And that's all I have this time.
Thank you, Trustee McFerrin. Trustee Mason?
Obviously, I too went to the board study session. I went to the Measure J and C committee meetings. I was on the CSBA meeting last night that President Pound oversaw. I guess you're president there too. I don't have to, I guess I'll say that for Gen Sac's benefit, I finished my garden program this summer, and I can report that 95% of the students increased their knowledge of nutrition, 100% of the students increased their consumption of fruits and vegetables, and 95% of the students have improved their self-efficacy. So it can be done. And that's where I get this lovely tan, and I will be starting my garden program tomorrow morning at 8:30 at St. Peter Martyr in the city of Pittsburgh.
Alrighty, thank you very much. Let's see, Trustee Nzemi?
I just want to share that the CDC just published a paper on Friday that looks at COVID hospitalizations among children from March to August of this year. Hospitalizations are highest among children 0 to 4 and 12 to 17. Hospitalizations were 5 times higher in August than in June. The hospitalization rate among unvaccinated children aged 12 to 17 was 10 times higher in August compared to June. The good news is that before Delta and after Delta, there's not much difference in the percentage of children in ICU or who have to be ventilated or who have died. So Delta isn't harming children any worse than before. The increase in hospitalization is likely due to the increase of community spread because Delta is so easily transmitted. The good news also shows that in states with higher vaccination rates, there are fewer hospitalized COVID patients. So if we have higher vaccination rates, we will likely have fewer kids who can't be vaccinated contracting COVID and spreading it to other unvaccinated people, who I'll remind you among children aged 12 to 17 who are eligible to be vaccinated were 10 times more likely to be hospitalized compared to June. Like most parents, I don't want my child to get COVID, no matter that they may handle it better. I beg you to wear your mask correctly, and if you or your children are eligible to be vaccinated, do it so we can all get out of this mess alive and well. And join me for another walk and talk next week, weather and smoke permitting. If it's hot like it was today, I will not be walking. Probably on Wednesday in the evening. Check my social media to confirm the time and location, and I'd love to meet everyone there. People do come for real, so you should come.
All right, thank you very much, Trustee Nzemi. Trustee Mayo?
Thank you very much. I will be very brief. I attended the board governance workshop, and Trustee McFerrin gave an excellent report at CAC meeting last night. And just like she gave an excellent report right now, so, you know, can't suppress that. I want to thank Dr. Clark for attending the Mount Diablo Council of PTA's meeting on September 1st. And the attendees were very interested in his remarks and were amazed that he could speak so quickly. But he definitely gave them information that they were eager to hear. So we thank you very much, Dr. Clark. Of course, there was the meeting for CCC-SBA that was last night. We had a very large number of people attending it from 3 different counties, maybe even 4 counties. And I think folks went away with information that will be beneficial for them to hold meetings where everyone remains civil. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Trustee Mayo. All right, I'll be brief as well. So I attended many of the same meetings. I want to thank Trustee Mayo for her leadership in the Mount Diablo Council of PTAs. I know you volunteer so much of your time to support our amazing school PTA leaders, and right now our parents are working harder than ever to try to build back their communities as people return to school amidst COVID and all of the stress and chaos that involves. So much appreciation. Yes, I was pleased about the Contra Costa County School Boards Association workshop on how to maintain decorum at school board meetings. Luckily, I do want to thank all of our Mount Diablo community. Everyone who's come to our meetings is always very civil, and we are able to get our business done. And we are so appreciative of that. One thing that that we have seen, though, is even at some nearby school districts in this area, we have seen disruptions to the meetings and disruption to the school boards being able to complete the business at hand. So we will definitely make sure that we're prepared to handle anything that may come our way to make sure that we continue to get things done for our students and for our employees. So we'll be ready for that. And then just, oh, I did want to share the High School Voter Education Week, September 13th to 24th. The California Department of Education encourages schools to participate, to put students on the path to a lifetime of civic engagement and voting. Everybody can share the news that 16 and 17-year-olds can pre-register to vote at registertovote.ca.gov. And the California Secretary of State's High School and Youth Initiatives portal on their website has a lot of great resources for schools, teachers, and students to be able to promote civic engagement. So that's an exciting thing that's coming up. And then overall, I just want to say, you know, this has been a really tough thing to navigate through the ever-changing health guidance, employee shortages, financial strain, to keep our schools open for our students. We're going to continue to do everything we can to support our students and our employees. I know it didn't look like that so much tonight, but we are going to move forward and do everything that we can to provide competitive pay and benefits and professional development and safe environments for all of our staff. And I think to the public in general, when you run into a frustrating situation at a school site, just please remember to take a minute to express your gratitude to the people that are dealing with your situation. And because those people are, as was mentioned earlier tonight, everybody is working so far above and beyond their job description and their regular hours to make sure that we continue serving our students. Because of the vacancies that someone may have around them, they may be doing something completely different than what is their normal job description. So let's all just keep that in mind and keep moving forward. It's got to get better. We'll all get vaccinated, and then hopefully we'll get better sooner than later. But let's just give each other as much patience and grace as we can every day. So much appreciated. All right, so with that, let's move to future agenda items. Did anyone have a future agenda item they wanted to mention? I had two that came from earlier. So one is, well, actually it's two board policies that I would like for us to look at in the near future. One is in looking at Suicide Prevention Month, we should look at updating our 5141.52 board policy and AR as well. And then the other suggestion is there's a CSBA sample board policy 1313 called Civility that is highly recommended put into place while your meetings are still civil and before any kind of unruliness occurs. We do, of course, already have board policy in place that covers how to run our meetings. This would just be an additional board policy to consider. So those would be the two.
Is the number ominous?
The 1313? Yeah, that is something to look into as well, because our board policies, we already have a board 1313 that is not on this topic. So that's something to research as well. But in the meantime, we'll continue to use our existing board policy, which we do have, just so everybody knows. Board bylaw 9323 has to do with how we manage our meetings. And that helps us to handle any kind of disruptions that may occur, to be able to call people out of order, terminate their privileges of addressing the board if needed. And we do have the right to clear the room, to recess, or to even adjourn the meeting. So that's all already in our board policies. And hopefully we will not need to implement those, but we'll be ready if the situation may occur. Okay, so lastly, were there any other future agenda items? Okay, so lastly, if board members would please stay to sign the resolutions. I know we've been doing this electronically until now, but we actually have pieces of paper for you all to sign. So everyone, don't forget to stay for that. All right, and with that, the meeting is adjourned here at 9:39 p.m.